Today with Ripple, we have a product which is Direct Remit. It's available online only. Soon it will be available on mobile. You can send a wire transfer from Kuwait to MBK Jordan and it will reach there within seconds. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without any delay. So that's where we want to go. That's what we anticipate. That's what we want to leverage this technology most. And we hope to expand to greater areas, to new corridors, looking in different countries, not just our network, but also leveraging on our existence in 14 different countries, over 4 continents, and really pushing this product. So I'll hand over to Mohammed, who will be talking more on blockchain and Ripple.
And imagine how annoying it would be if we spend all this time making the insurance industry, for example, work really well and really perfectly. And then as soon as a payment is needed, suddenly everything breaks. And I say, I've paid you, you can't find the money, you think I haven't paid you, we shout at each other, and everything gets complicated again. We need to make sure the interoperability and the connection is so perfect that we never get into disagreement again. And that's why we need to work together as an industry, as a community, to make sure these linkages are tight and correct. So I talked about this in my speech, and I think maybe surprisingly, the point I was making was, I think as an industry, we may have been too ambitious. We've been trying to solve the really hardest problems first. We've been trying to perfectly connect 2 different blockchains to allow assets and information to move perfectly in both directions at the same time. And that is a very good goal. It's an ambitious goal, and it's one that we are working on too. But if we look at what people need today, they actually need something simpler. They just need the ability perhaps to make a payment and know that it has been made correctly. So I think by trying to be too ambitious, we're making it too complicated. So to move more quickly, we should focus on the problems of today. Last year, we released some code. We gave it away for free as open source code. It was called Corda Settler. And that was our demonstration of a simpler way. So we wrote the code and showed people, here is a way to connect Corda to other blockchains. We showed how to connect it to XRP. Now we're working with Swift to show how to connect it to GPI, which is their new payment system for traditional usages. And we showed how to do it in a very simple way. And I think these step-by-step situations, these step-by-step paths that are done openly, collaboratively, and with open source, we think that's the key to moving forward.
Use technology to freeze and release assets and move them across the chain. So that's one good example that's been going on with the central banks. Another one is actually with my good friend from Ripple. So we built an interoperability tool called the Corda Settler. It allows people to do business on Corda, create financial obligations on Corda. So on Corda, there is a record that says, I owe you $200, and then reach out to other networks and settle on other networks. So the one that we built, it's an open source piece of code. It's a pattern that people can just download and tweak, but it connected to Ripple's testnet and it moved XRPs from one account to another one. And then based on when the XRP kind of settled, landed in the beneficiary's account, it came back to Corda and it said that obligation is now being paid. So there's different types of interoperability depending on what you're trying to achieve, but a couple of examples there.
I think just to at a very macro level, I think if anyone believes that there will be one blockchain that will rule the world or one payment system that will rule the world, I think he or she is living in a fool's paradise. I think the need of the hour is that going forward there will be different blockchains, different payment networks, and it's really the how you connect those networks, how you connect those ledgers, those blockchains, using an interoperable protocol. That really would be the future 5 years from now.
Same things happen with cryptocurrency. There's some people that just want to ban it outright, some people that think it's great, but there's enough people undecided that crypto made it out of the crib in the US. Not all crypto, but a company like Coinbase or Ripple, the first is which I invested, the second where I was the chief risk officer, showed that they could be compliant enough to not get shut down right out of the box. And so it's finding that balance between being disruptive, but not too disruptive.
So Ripple's meant to be a replacement for SWIFT and the messaging system those banks use, and other things like ACH they use to settle transactions. XRP is meant to be a digital way to move value, to move digital money, if you will. And it's really focused on that. So there are other cryptocurrencies, Ether is an example of something that can do all kinds of stuff, including move value. But there was, some people in the industry look at that and say, well, why is Ether so slow to close a transaction? Well, maybe because it's trying to do too much, or just trying to do so much, or it can do so much. XRP is purely focused on value. It can do, Visa-like 1,500 transactions per second, and is really equipped to do things in a digital network that, as I described at the beginning of our talk, we don't have digital value right now. When you send someone a Venmo payment, they don't actually get the money for like 3 to 5 days. They might credit an account, but there's risk being taken by the company there, and that's why the fees are so high. When you use XRP, when one of our customers uses XRP to move money from Thailand to Spain, it happens in less than a minute or two, and it's very accurate and quick to do so, and it wouldn't be possible without that technology. We've seen customers show us product that they're doing developed on us, saying they'll let their customer go onto their iPhone or Samsung phone or whatever and say, I want to move this amount of money. You can move it right now using Ripple for this cost, or you can move it in 4 days for that cost. The only thing is, for us, it's so much, for using Ripple, it's so much cheaper that the app was, we want them to do that to make us look, to show how great our service is. But I don't know if they'll really have banks. Right now, all of our customers are still doing both. They're still using SWIFT and they're using Ripple's products. So, I don't know, I think that's true, actually. I don't know if anyone's 100% on us. But I would expect we will have customers that are only using Ripple's products, and some people like the way the world is, and they'll probably stick.
Yeah. And actually, that is also looking into the cross-border payments.
Yes.
However, in the project that we have with Ripple, we don't, as a central bank, we don't implement any technology. It's banks, commercial bank, who are implementing the technology.
Yes.
However, we choose to start this project as an approach we used in SAMA. We call it central bank-led innovation.
Yes.
And that is how we started some innovative initiatives from SAMA itself as a central, and encourage the banks to use the innovative technologies and the new technologies. And we choose Ripple at that time because they have a very focused use case.
Yes.
So it is not related to the technology, it's more related to the use case itself and the focus of the company in the cross-border payments. And because, as you mentioned before, that we are the outgoing remittance is very high in Saudi. So we started the program. So SAMA was leading the program. We were steering it. Also, we do the training for all the banks on deep dive training on the blockchain and Ripple technology. And the bank themselves, they started the implementation of the technology based on different use cases that were discussed in the program. And the bank started using actually the technology on production. In the last few months, we had one bank who went live on production using Ripple X Current. Another bank is going very soon, and we have 2 more banks going also in this first quarter of 2019.
Challenges-wise, I think we already heard challenges. There are many challenges, and we are all in the banking space and in the fintech space working collaboratively to solve for these use cases. So, for example, I represent IndusInd Bank. So we have done a cross-border inward remittance platform tie-up with Ripple, which is a blockchain platform. A couple of large banks are already tied up with us, and they're putting in transactions daily through this platform. I'll talk a little bit as we go along, but it clearly has a lot of benefits on the blockchain side. So we are trying to see what other use cases can be added onto that and how it can make our customer experience a lot better.
I do think what has happened at GPI is a big step forward. For 40 plus years, we had a construct around how cross-border correspondent banking worked. It worked, but it had a lot of limitations. We're seeing that move forward, but I think it's a step forward when you're switching from kind of, if I may, horse and buggy to You know, hey, can we make the horse and buggy go faster? Sure, but if we can actually just move to a Ferrari, let's do that.
So you've said before that you think there's a world where Ripple could take over Swift.
Well, I've also said I thought there was ways we could work with Swift.
Let's talk about that.
Well, stay. At one of the traditional exchanges, Bitstamp, I think in 2014 or 2015, there was some kind of freeze function executed or whatever. And how does that work, and who decides how that's executed? And just tell us about that.
Thank you for that question. That's a great question. I'd love to explain that. So the XRP ledger has a freeze feature for assets other than XRP. So for example, you can represent legal obligations on the XRP ledger and you can trade them. So for example, if Bitstamp owes me 1 Bitcoin, I can trade that on the XRP ledger to someone else who can redeem it. Bitstamp treats that as a legal obligation. Now, legal obligations can disappear because of things that happen off the ledger. In this case, there was a dispute over the ownership of some of those funds. And Bitstamp made the decision to freeze those funds on the ledger, which is what they should do. If they're not sure whether they owe me a Bitcoin or not, the ledger shouldn't reflect the fact that they owe me a Bitcoin. Now, I just want to add this has no effect on XRP, and you can also create assets that don't reflect legal obligations. But that's what makes the decentralized exchange possible. Most digitized or collateralized fiat assets on the ledger are freezable by their issuer. So it's the issuer of that asset that can freeze it. So if you decide to accept dollars backed by, let's say, GateHub, GateHub can freeze those dollars. Let's say if the government says that you can't withdraw them. So it's an actual legal obligation tradable on the ledger. Yes, it's strictly the issuer. And XRP isn't issued by anyone, so there's nobody who could freeze it.
And taking advantage of that currency framework, what we are going to do is the same thing that's available in a number of markets around the world. As you know, today, banks, when they fund, they keep Nostro accounts with other institutions. And we estimate there is about $5 to $10 trillion that's stuck of depositors' money that's lying elsewhere around the world with capital risk, depreciation risk, and all the things that go with it. And that's the reason remittances are too expensive. But if you use cryptos to do just-in-time settlement and just-in-time funding, that $5 to $10 trillion can come back home, reducing the cost for financial institutions, which in turn can make remittances cheaper. Because otherwise, the World Bank goal of bringing down the cost of remittances from 8% to a below sub-5 number would not be achievable. But with on-demand liquidity, that means using cryptos to fund it between 2 licensed exchanges is the best way to go.
For sure. So we have over 100 banks working with Ripple today around the world. I think the vast majority of banks, like 99.9% of banks, actually are paying other banks, the kind of the global money center banks like JP Morgan or Citibank, to make those settlements. So a lot of the banks are very excited about democratizing how these global payments flow.
There's a belief that, you could transform the global payment system over time. Although then the alternative argument is you need a centralized. You can't have it decentralized, that it actually benefits from efficiencies. I would assume you come down in the latter.
Yeah, for sure. I think anytime you can do something without that central counterparty, you're going to reduce friction, which is measured by time, cost, speed. So by removing that central counterparty, going direct from point to point, you can skip going from the Bank of David to the Bank of Morgan to the Bank of Mike. You just go directly to the Bank of Mike.
So the way we think about it is XRP Ledger is really this open source, open ledger platform that you can build a lot of different verticals on top of. And when we talk about the internet of value at Ripple, we're thinking much bigger than just cross-border payments. It just so happens cross-border payments with institutions is the niche that we're focused on right now. It's kind of like Amazon with rare books in the early days, just this market happens to be a $10 trillion market.
We think that games are going to be the mass adoption moment for the blockchain, and I'm just wondering what you guys think about games on the blockchain, which blockchain is going to be the best for it, who's going to be the most enticing, and that sort of thing.
I'll jump in real quickly. I think this is one area where maybe blockchain use is underhyped. I don't think people talk that much about blockchain use in gaming. I think it's incredibly interesting. In terms of which underlying blockchain's most efficient, that's, I think, a question of speed, scale, what have you. I don't think there's going to be a winner take all in that space, but I think certainly you're going to see interesting new projects in 2019 around that. I know there's a couple being built upon the XRP ledger, and I think it's going to be a very interesting space to watch in 2019.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Would love to hear what's being built on XRP.
Great. We have thousands of bank accounts around the world and the ability to pre-position cash. So, the partnership really gives us a chance to speed this up and really gives them a chance to put real-time, meaningful value into the network and online and get that liquidity through the system. And I think it's going to show that from a platform perspective, XRapid and XRP as an asset is the absolute right one to use for the settlement purposes. And it should, I would think, if done well, is going to enable others to want to jump on board and participate as well. Because I think it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. I think we have liquidity. We don't have the speed and the back end processes. They have, the speed, but not the liquidity. I think it's a perfect marriage, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity to show the world what we can do together.
I think in the context of, is XRP centralized or decentralized? It is very clearly decentralized. I, as CEO of the company, can't control the XRP ledger. I can't change a transaction. The irony of this is, as the XRP ledger has become more decentralized, Bitcoin and Ethereum have become more centralized. Obviously, lots of people are aware of the 51% attacks. You now have 3 miners in China that can control the Bitcoin blockchain. So when I hear people kind of making the points, is the XRP ledger centralized? I think there's a lot of people out there that are fighting holy wars and they're spreading misinformation. And they're spreading misinformation because they have an economic interest in that. I don't worry about some of this stuff because I feel like the facts, as I said up front, the facts will set you free. And the fact is that XRP, anybody can participate in the XRP ecosystem. And if Ripple does something that's not in the best interest of the XRP ecosystem, the rest of the ecosystem could ignore us. So I think it's very, I think when people dive into the technical details, XRP is very clearly decentralized. That's one thing I guess I would want the community to understand. The most important thing probably is the people who continue to conflate, I think some people do this intentionally, conflate what is XRP and what is Ripple. Ripple is a centralized company investing in a decentralized technology in the same way Amazon was investing in TCP/IP in some ways.
The way that value moves today hasn't really kept up with advances in technology. Every bank looks kind of like an island. It's very difficult for them to communicate with one another. So normally they have to go through a payment system to do this. Each one of these payment systems use a different type of technology, which makes it difficult for these banks and their ledgers to interoperate. What Ripple looks like is a decentralized distributed ledger, which banks can use as common settlement infrastructure to interoperate. It facilitates the real-time transfer of value and exchange of any different types of currencies without using an intermediary currency. Bitcoin can facilitate transactions in just one type of currency, one type of asset, which is Bitcoin. Ripple generalizes that ledger so you can use it for any type of currency. It's not tied to Bitcoin or any other currency. The major use cases that banks are integrating Ripple for today are real-time cross-border settlement as an alternative to global money center banks for correspondent banking. Banks can now settle on a point-to-point basis without intermediaries. Ripple can also be used for real-time domestic settlement. Ripple is a complementary technology. It's a cooperative technology that many different players in the financial services industry can use. Our goal is to work with financial institutions to help lower the structural costs of settlement so that these institutions can provide either better or lower cost financial services to their customers.
What kind of improvements have you made to the Bitcoin blockchain or the Bitcoin ledger?
Well, so in the very beginning, we built a federated, what engineers and computer scientists would call a federated Byzantine agreement model instead of proof of work. And one of the first challenges that we had after we said, like, can we actually make this work? I'm like, okay, we can make this work. But the next challenge we had is like, what is it good for? What can it do better than existing? If you invented a new material, but it was really heavy, really expensive, it rusted really easily, it wasn't very strong, you'd be like, cool, we built a new material, like, now let's go build something else, right? So it's like, it had certain characteristics, and we're like, what problems can it solve that proof of work maybe isn't as good at solving because of those different characteristics? And the first thing that we hit on was a cross-currency system. So one of the big differences between federated Byzantine agreement and mining is when you mine in a proof of work system, the miner who mines a particular block gets to choose every transaction in that block. So they're the sort of dictator of the moment. And they're completely self-interested. They're not trying to help you out, right? They're trying to help themselves out. So now imagine if you had like the New York Stock Exchange and a different self-interested party ran it for every 10 minutes. Boy, that would look a lot different than the New York Stock Exchange. So what we thought of is We don't have a dictator. Every transaction is voted on by a majority, and that majority is selected for the fact that they pick transactions in an unbiased way. Like if someone picks transactions in a biased way, you just stop listening to them. And so we thought, what could we target? And we thought we could target an exchange system where people want to trade one currency or one asset for another. And so we built the ledger from the beginning as a multi-currency ledger. And I think that we built in peer-to-peer credit and lending, so like I can extend credit to people and they can sort of draw on that. And I think that's probably the key difference.
Is, as you know, a digital asset which was designed specifically for very, very high volume, very, very fast transacting. Be effective with a corporate treasurer, you have to really connect into the software that they use, whether it's a Kyriba, it's a SunGard, SAP, Oracle, etc. So the XVIA connection software is API driven. So the idea is that we can embed this technology within tried and tested ERP, as in like the SAPs of this world, or Treasury workstations, or any app that's developed by a software provider, let's say a PSD2 benefiting software provider or a bank, to serve the corporate treasurer. And that means that the day-to-day activity that they run through, the connections back and forth with the banking system, etc., that can all be driven through this embedded API connection very smoothly. We developed XVIA from the outset to be hosted, which is another very important
to sit on the client side.
Very important point, or even on the cloud. So the idea is if you have Kyriba in the cloud or SAP's FSN network, for example, I'm just picking a few names out. The direction of travel for software provided to corporate large or small is to put them on the cloud. The customer's experience, they'll be accessing the cloud software supporting their treasury, or let's say their finance function. Embedded in that cloud proposition is Ripple's delivery capability. We believe very strongly that as the marketplace develops into a much more interconnected world, there's an absolute powerful position for effective assets to be used in this way. And the key thing here is that you work with the regulators, with the establishment when you are bringing something new into market. So we work really closely with the world's leading regulators. The Bank of England ran a proof of concept trial Ripple last year, for example. And most of our corporate customers and global customers are banks, and many of the largest banks in the world. We did it on purpose because you have to work from the inside to evolve the industry.
So last year we did a POC with Ripple, together with Ripple, to use our products with blockchain messaging, and we succeeded. So now we have software products that are blockchain ready. Yeah.
With that in mind, what sort of effect will blockchain technologies have on cash management for a bank?
It's going to make it run much faster. So you're going to have, instead of waiting the day where you could actually decide, we didn't know about it for a day, you may have received it or not, but people are now going to expect, corporations down to ourselves are going to expect that these payments get applied much faster, not 3 days. So we're complacent, right? We're okay paying 7% to deposit our $400 because we know it goes through all this technology and all this sausage factory works. But if we go to the blockchain with our partners, a lot of that infrastructure goes away. I'm not paying a 7% fee to SWIFT anymore. I'm paying a couple of percentage points to the partner, and it hits within 3 to 4 seconds.
So from a cash management and liquidity side of things, it removes the excuse, oh, it will be with you, it's being processed at the moment.
Correct. It removes the excuse, which also means that banks are going to have to buy systems like ours because they're not prepared for this. It's a disruptive technology, and they're not prepared for it.
We ran a trial last year of 12 banks that did not have accounts with each other, but wanted to make cross-border payments, where they used XRP as a means to source fiat currency. So they were using XRP to source liquidity and test its use case. In that trial, we found that it was quite successful in getting immediate access to liquidity and having significant capital savings for these institutions. We're moving now to production of this type of solution. We're partnering with several exchanges in different countries to list XRP, to quote it between the local currency. So there's a healthy liquidity ecosystem of many exchanges providing liquidity into and out of XRP, allowing or enabling a source for banks to turn to source XRP and enable it for cross-border liquidity. So we see this as our network expands, becoming a crucial part in scaling liquidity. We should note all the payments remain in fiat currency, so it's still government currency, and this is an optional tool. We don't require it for use of the network. The bank can use Ripple without ever engaging with XRP if they don't have an interest in that. So it's a preview of how we're looking at solving liquidity in our system. It's an optional tool that we do expect to see a great adoption for over the coming years. So that concludes the presentation today.
But look, I then and even now think some of the consumer use case that had a lot of the excitement and energy in 2015 when I joined Ripple, I felt was early and premature. And so Ripple, and as you know, I mean, Ripple was a little bit of a contrarian, or a lot of a contrarian, and kind of saying, look, we don't think governments are going away. We don't think banks are going away. We don't think fiat currency is going away. But we still think there's a role for digital assets to play in reducing friction and accelerating the speed and reducing costs associated with payments. So when I started to talk to Chris Larsen, they were recruiting to hire somebody as COO. Being a Bitcoin enthusiast or crypto enthusiast married with, I thought, a very pragmatic vision of how you actually bring this forward. And revolutions rarely happen by going to the end point first. Instead, it's a crawl. I use the expression internally about crawl, walk, run. And you got to crawl before you walk, before you run. And I think the progress Ripple's making for the industry is, I think, moving the whole revolution forward.
My prediction, about 1 year ago, I actually was here at the Singapore FinTech Festival, and I got in trouble when I went back to the office because the PR team said I had overstepped by predicting that within a year, I predicted that financial institutions like banks would be using XRP in their payment flows. And that was a year ago that I made that prediction, and I go back to the office and everybody was like, Brad, you're not allowed to say things like that. It turns out I was right, which I remind the team of. So now as I look forward a year from now, like what are the things that are hard for us to imagine being true? And not even specific to Ripple or to XRP's community. I think one of the things that will surprise us a year from now is that banks will be custodying digital assets directly. And I think right now we think about that and think, look, there's no way that's going to happen. They're too conservative. And I think what you're seeing is, two things happening. One is banks are seeing that a lot of money is being made by digital asset exchanges globally, and banks are profit motivated. The second, and as we've talked about up here, certainly Ross has made very clear, is regulatory clarity and regulatory frameworks enable banks and financial institutions to lean into these markets. And I think we will surprise ourselves by this time. And by the way, I'll also predict that it will be banks in the ASEAN markets where there is this regulatory clarity and there is a lot of progressive forward thinking. They'll be the first to actually allow for crypto assets custody in their accounts. All right, with that, we'll turn it over to questions. And I see a bunch of questions on this screen, which I can't really read from here, but we're supposed to pick some. Can you see those? Oh, there's 2 votes.
Let me try.
Do you see IMF holding crypto assets in the future? Oh, they're over here. That's easier. You want to take one? Go for it. The first one's for you. IMF. Do you see IMF holding crypto assets in the future? I did not put that up there.
Remember, I'm from the legal department. I'm supposed to be very conservative about these things. I don't want to go into great details about
Maybe I should take what the IMF is going to do.
So we did speak earlier where you mentioned that it's not necessarily about replacing SWIFT, it's about complementing it. So let's get some more information on this.
Okay. I used to work for SWIFT. I was SWIFT for 20 years, so SWIFT is flowing through my veins. SWIFT is the preeminent messaging system for the financial industry, which covers, say, payments, FX, trade, in terms of securities, etc., Nostra reconciliations, etc. What we're looking with the crypto, though, is where SWIFT would have a store and forward system for most of its payment transactions, where you need service level agreements that in a certain time I will do something, the payment turns up at a certain time during the day. Here we're looking at the new network styles which allow instant, real-time movement of the funds and visibility of those funds as well. So we would not have a situation where banks need to come back to you and say, have my funds arrived, it's 3 days later, I need to find out or find query messages moving around the network. There's nothing like that. I don't believe Ripple is going to replace SWIFT. Ripple is one of the complementary networks which is going to allow those institutions who need real time to make use of that. And I think we're also seeing that SWIFT are changing their network capability so that real time will be a possibility as well. But we may also see Ripple XRP moving across the SWIFT network as a currency when we're perhaps using something like FX.
Well, that tells you how much potential there is. You know, we are launching OnePayFX, which is a blockchain-based retail cross-border payment with Ripple, by the way, a U.S. company. That's coming to the U.S. We're going to do Open Bank. There's a lot of things that, and we created the North America region, Mexico, U.S. So we're now running a lot of these businesses together. So you'll see good results in the coming years. That's why today we announced our payment services division, which is super exciting, by the way. We're very big on this. People don't know that. We're going to be investing $20 billion over the next few years in technology and digital. It's about $5 billion total per year, and of that, $2 billion is in digital. So the run the bank and transform the bank versus the investment for the future is quite a healthy ratio. And in terms of scale, by the way, we're right up there with the biggest banks in the world. So we'd be 4th or 5th in the US, depending on how you measure that. So we have enough scale to invest across the group, which is one of the ways, that we're aiming to work more for the countries like the US or other countries where we don't have, the profitability we want. So we're going to really take advantage of our size globally.
This slide is going to shock you, but it's actually kind of real. This is something that our blockchain lab, nice to see you folks, built over the last 2 years. A tokenized system to move money from, on the right, bank number 2, through a cash tokenizing system that relies on a set of smart contracts that can perform the exchange of one currency to another currency in order to effect delivery of an international payment in about 30 seconds from one country to another. That's many, many times faster than what it's done today. This is a busy slide, and I apologize for that.
So that's one area. I see Brad here from Ripple. I think we're leaders, not the, I'd say, top 3, 4, just not to be maybe 5, but maybe 3. Top 3 in the world in terms of blockchain-based technologies. We have a great partnership with Ripple. So we think we can lead in terms of the automation, because don't forget, this is about automation. Blockchain is just one piece of the automation to make in this case, payments more effective, more transparent, faster, and cheaper for the consumer. So there's a number of areas, both on retail and wholesale, where we can be a leader, including in the U.S.
Yeah, talk more about the technology and the innovation coming out of Santander now, because you've been a big backer of Ripple. You also recently talked about blockchain-based lending broadly, and you issued the first blockchain bond.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a first, but again, it's there's a lot more to do. So we issued the first. It was a 20 million euro bond, where both the cash and the security leg were blockchain based, but also the way we did the payment against delivery, was on the blockchain, and that is a first. So we took out the clearinghouse, we took out the payment agent. So there's a lot of inefficiencies in what I call let's say, the engine room, the infrastructure of payments. It's not, I'm not saying the banks are great, but a lot of it is not to do with us. It's to do with all the payment rails behind what we actually build upon. And so, again, there's a number, you haven't asked me about Libra yet, but yes. So
tell me about Libra, Facebook's.
So, but just to finish on this point is that automation is the thing. You know, how do we automate to become and I think DLTs or distributed ledger technologies are going to be one of the pieces that is going to allow for much more efficient, faster. You know, the consumer wants everything 24/7, 365, and that's what we're going to be doing with this infrastructure change. So before going on to Libra,
since we launched the OnePayFX service to our customers in April, we've got great feedback and some great take-up. So we want to take it to the next level and really push the agenda here.
Now, that's a consumer offering, right? Can you explain for our viewers that might not be entirely sure exactly what that is?
So OnePayFX is an international payment service that we've launched for retail and SME customers. We launched it in April. It's based on a new technology setup, which includes using Ripple. We launched it in 4 countries, Spain, UK, Brazil and Poland. And we're now in a process of making it available to more customers, more segments, more countries.
Another interesting player in this space is SBI. SBI is a fairly big financial conglomerate. Now they're launching a new initiative to make them the 4th Japanese mega bank by tying up with a number of regional banks. And they've been investing and exploring blockchain technology probably more than anybody else here in Japan. In fact, this is from their own reports. You can see that they're looking at all different ways of bringing different technology into financial services. It's not just a blockchain, but it's AI, it's IoT, it's robotics, and they've set up a number of subsidiaries to look at exploring those opportunities, particularly with regard to blockchain. They have invested in exchange business, in mining, in remittances, derivatives, and so forth. So, for example, they actually own 60% of SBI Asia Ripple, which is the Asia-based unit to promote Ripple usage among financial institutions.
Until 2015 and 2016, the banks were more playing with blockchain, and they were doing POCs, pilots. But as 2017, we stopped selling pilots, and we are just selling commercial use cases and really production contracts with the banks. So we are not doing pilots anymore. The technology is proven that it works. The banks are transacting money around the world. So as of 2 years ago, we stopped commercializing pilots, and we are really focusing on production contracts now. Yeah. So we do have many banks in the world and in Latin America region using blockchain technology through Ripple to send money cross-border. Yeah. Latin America was, it is one of the most important regions for Ripple. It was one of the last regions that we decided to have a base and to hire employees. But we have seen a lot of momentum now. So we have many banks in Brazil, in Chile, Argentina, Peru, Mexico, in Central America, Caribbean. So we are growing quite fast. The banks are implementing different use cases. Sometimes it's more B2B and corporates. Sometimes it's remittance. Some of them are implementing inbound. The other ones are implementing outbound. But all of them are looking to reduce the costs, increase the speed of the transaction, and also to have transparency of the flows. And this has been very successful in the region because Latin America has different currencies among the countries. Those are exotic currencies that don't have, it's not an FX, it's a very regulated market. The FX market is not open. So it's important to have a technology that could help the banks to open more doors, to transact, to send flows and receive flows among the RippleNet members.
And of core banking architecture, I think there would probably be some changes needed in terms of the Federal Reserve System. But for, smaller valuation or smaller amount payments, I think you already are seeing some blockchain-based systems being created that enable the movement of money. So I think there are examples out there. We talk about XRP or others that kind of offer this.
We bring everybody along with us
as we make this technology jump?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Mr. Scott. So I think it has to be done in partnership. So PayPal is a technology company, but there are all sorts of entities that are on the ground in the communities, in the places where you're talking about. Think of retailers, maybe a 7-Eleven, a Walmart. Think of a remittance provider like a RIA, where we can partner with those entities, enable cash to be offered up at the point of sale, and then digitize it on the back end. So I think it's really in getting on the ground in the communities, in the places where these people are, and providing them a service, as I mentioned in my testimony, that is actually more valuable than just a cash-based service. Because until and unless we create that value proposition that really can respond to the challenges and the issues that they're facing, then there won't be a reason to move into this ecosystem.
Affect use cases like payments. What is it that matters? Is it secure? Is it reliable? Are the payments fast? Are they cheap? XRP wins on all of those metrics. Again, over 35 million ledgers closed without incident since the system began, roughly 1 every 5 to 7 seconds. XRP is currently available on more than 60 exchanges. It's also the fastest asset for moving money between exchanges, again, because those transactions take only a couple of seconds.
Amazon has to figure out how to disperse funds to vendors in 185 countries. Amazon only does disbursements in 19 currencies, which in and of itself is a huge effort for them. That means tons of integrations into different banks. That means employing literally hundreds of people within Amazon to work on payments. That's true. We've talked to people in Uber. We've talked to people in Airbnb. These are not payments companies.
New companies like Amazon and Uber need a seamless global experience. They don't want to integrate with a new API or 3 different mobile payment companies in every country that they want to communicate with. They need fast payments.
Is that we did a lot of research in terms of what was broken with the financial system and the payment system, and we went out and visited with Uber and Airbnb and Google and the others. And what I realized is that these firms, we think of them as tech firms, but a large part of what they do and the value they provide are payment. Amazon, for example, has 206 different payment connections to facilitate merchant payouts for their platform. And so, they're pushing innovation. And I don't think that they should be in the payment business. I think that they should use, other technologies instead of, and focusing on what they're really good at. And so, their role right now has been to push innovation. And I think that's a good thing. But in the future, we're hoping that there's other solutions like the ones Ripple provides so that they don't have to get in that business.
The way that these companies move money today is essentially they become their own payment company. And they're out there integrating, as depicted on this picture, hundreds of systems around the world. Amazon, 200 people in Seattle just working on payments. Uber, again, hundreds of people working on payments. And, our vision is, well, why don't you focus on transportation or connecting hosts and guests and integrate, a standard API that allow you to access the world in terms of cross-border payments. And this is a vision that we've been working on for the last 5 years. We want to bring this together in the next year to enable corporates to move money across our ecosystem.
We can see that on the send side, at the pound-based exchange here, that FastRemit has a funded position in sterling and is able to, in real time, convert that from pounds to XRP. And this is based on the pricing that's quoted up front and happens in real time. RippleNet will then manage the transfer of that XRP across the XRP ledger to the Filipino exchange. This is a movement of value from the UK to Philippines in real time. There is no pre-funding in pesos required. The exchange picks up those receipt of XRP in real time, and RippleNet will then instruct a conversion of XRP to Filipino peso to fund Sprout Bank in real time. Sprout Bank immediately receives the 2,500 pesos, and receives notification through the same mechanism as the settlement process in the bilateral case. They have received those funds and have that obligation to pay out to the beneficiary. So through no direct account relationship, Fast Remit and Sprout Bank have exchanged the value to settle this payment. Sprout Bank will receive notification of that and perform the payout to the digital wallet, same as the first scenario. Of course, that final step is still critical. The customer needs to know that the payout to the beneficiary has occurred. So they're receiving in real time confirmation that that payment is finalized and that their friends or family have received those funds. And this is happening whilst they're on their phone delivering those funds to the beneficiary in Philippines in real time.
Well, I have to tell you that when I was running for Ripple for the last 3 years, the APAC MENA business, and MENA has been the fastest adopter of technology from Ripple to date. So we have signed banks in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, in Oman, possibly in Kuwait shortly. So the appetite for embracing Ripple's DLT technology for cross-border payments, enormous interest. So the enthusiasm of the regulator, the central banks, to also encourage the use of Ripple technology to build new infrastructure for payment rails, not just within the country, but across the GCC, I think augurs really, really well for the adoption of the latest technology in this region.
This week will probably be the best week of signed contracts at Ripple ever.
Right. Wow.
It has been a massive call to action because, you know, again, Facebook kind of came out and said, we don't need Western Union anymore.
Right.
Well, if you're a bank, if you're Western Union, you kind of, that's interesting. Right. And I think the banks realize that if Facebook is going to be a competitor in this space, they can't depend upon a technology like SWIFT to compete in the marketplace.
So I want to go to questions in just a second, so please think of...
Thank you. When you said that it was the best time, it was the best week for Ripple contracts ever, was that a factual statement or are you just hoping?
No, that's a factual statement.
That the Facebook announcement has
absolutely catalyzed contract activity. So we may have been talking to a bank, a payment provider for 6 weeks, 6 months about a contract. This has been a call to action. There's no question, I was texting with our head of sales, a guy named John Mitchell. He flies around the world more than anybody I've ever met. And, this is going to be a record week for Ripple.
More excited when I heard what he had to say on stage. Mike, welcome to CNBC Crypto Trader. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
So you made an announcement today on the stage.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you announced.
So I announced a new hedge fund. So I'm a venture capitalist. Before that, I founded a website called TechCrunch, which is technology news. And then I became a venture capitalist. I had 3 funds, and now I'm starting something new, a hedge fund, to be focused entirely on crypto. So cryptocurrencies and related assets, yeah. So it's denominated in XRP, which is a cryptocurrency, and it's the 3rd or 4th biggest, depending on how you calculate. And I think that you're going to see, you've seen some people dabble with Ether and stuff like that with small hedge funds, but I think this is the first large-scale hedge fund denominated in a cryptocurrency, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, it's just so much better than using any kind of fiat dollars, whatever.
But why XRP of all the cryptocurrencies that are out there?
Banks use XRP to transfer money, particularly cross-border, because it's super fast compared to SWIFT, right? So it's a cryptocurrency that's specifically designed for large institutions to move money to a different institution in a different country, super fast, super cheap, particularly bypassing SWIFT. We're going to have LPs from all over the world, and we're going to be making investments in XRP. It is so much better than wiring money to an investment, sending them cryptocurrency. We're investing in crypto companies, so they're already set up to take crypto. They know what crypto is, so there's no educational curve. Like, it's almost like, why would anybody starting a crypto hedge fund do it in dollars? Like, that makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense at all.
And we'd spent all morning discussing this and that and regulations and technology and cloud and all of the things that are affecting people. And someone at the back stood up and said, this doesn't matter at all because you're all going to be put out of business by Ripple. And I'd never heard of Ripple at the time. And they said, SWIFT is going to be put out of business by Ripple. And I thought, that's quite handy. I'll phone up SWIFT and see what they think. That'll make a good story for the paper. And SWIFT said, actually, we're taking this really seriously. We think it could affect us in lots of ways. And they were publishing white papers. They still are publishing white papers. That's as far as they've got. The two there. You've got the SWIFT have now brought out this global payment initiative where they brought settlement times for cross-border payments down to next day funds availability, which is one step towards an immediate payment type architecture, and good enough for now probably. But they've also, on the top of that, they've got a project still at the proof of concept stage where they're using blockchain to do Nostro reconciliation between accounts. And that's quite promising. It's almost like your side chain idea. They're doing this separately because they get the speed of reconciliation and settlement without having the scalability problems. And it's slightly sharding because it's end-of-day settlement. So there we go. So yeah, there are moves to sort of bring these things together. But this is why, in some areas, I think it's going to take far longer, and probably why Swift hasn't bought Ripple yet.
Can I make one comment? Please, yeah. And if there's another question, if you could.
It's actually really interesting what you just mentioned, David, because initially, if you go back maybe a year and a half, Swift was really blockchain, never going to work. It's terrible. It's the worst thing ever. Looking for all the worst information, and vice versa. Now they've completely switched. They're actually starting to look at their technology themselves with GPII, with a number of other initiatives to say, actually, maybe here we do have something that we can use. So going back to your question, I think as all of these individual networks start seeing that the technology is moving on, it's getting better, it's faster to process, and we're starting to look at the latency, they're starting to think, actually, there might be real applications that we can use in our business in the future.
Considering the timeline of where we are, we're near an inflection point. I don't think that we're at the middle or the mature part of the industry by no means. I think that there's going to be mass adoption of digital assets and all the use cases that they can be utilized for. One of the things that we're seeing at Bitso, and it's very interesting, is that we used to dream about doing cross-border payments or remittances, and this used to be only a vision, as Brad said earlier today, and we're starting to see that really happening. Today, if we analyze what we're doing on a weekly basis today, we are at 1.5% of the remittance corridor between the US and Mexico, which is the largest corridor in the world with $35 billion a year. So if you think that's 1.5%, which is nothing, but it's amazing in the dimension of what we're talking about, the opportunity it can blow our minds. And this is just one corridor talking about just the world and connecting all the dots, not only in remittances and cross-border payments, but in all the different use cases that we could give to the technology. I think this is just starting.
So we have a product which is called on-demand liquidity, and rather than pre-funding in the destination country, you can source on-demand liquidity. So imagine you are a payment service provider, you want to send $100 to Mexico, and you use actually our native digital asset, which is called XRP, as a bridge currency between the two fiat currencies. So changing from USD to XRP, and immediately after to Mexican peso. But this is really revolutionizing, actually, the way that the money is handled. Because today, FX and the transfer of the money are not happening at the same time. And this created lots of exposure, especially to low-margin organizations. So in MoneyGram, for instance, is a case that went live recently. They are using this solution in a few markets, as I mentioned, more exotic markets like for instance, Mexico, Thailand, and they see already a great efficiencies and decrease of the cost in the way that the treasury and liquidity management is happening. This is still, of course, needs to be more commercialized, but this is really shifting the way that we are thinking about transfer of the money as compared to what is today.
When I decided in 2017 that I wanted to get into crypto, I started making some investments, and I made some at my venture firm, which was called Crunch Fund. But venture funds really can't do much in crypto. Sure. They need to do equity mostly. Just contractually. And so I started doing stuff outside of the venture fund on my own with some friends. And then I realized, I started making some money. I realized, this needs to be in a fund, and I need to raise other people's money, because if you're wealthy and you invest your own money, it's great. But there is nothing better in this world than taking other people's money and investing it.
It's the biggest
and
drug.
Getting a cut.
OPM.
It is amazing. OPM. So I decided I needed to raise a fund. Needed to be a hedge fund, couldn't be a venture fund. and I happen to know the Ripple guys extremely well.
Sure.
The CEO is one of my best friends.
Okay.
So I went to them for advice on how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's really just how it worked. And then I started realizing how great XRP, the Ripple, the currency associated with the company Ripple, how great it is actually for a hedge fund. Hedge funds move a lot of money around between back and forth to LPs, back and forth to companies we invest in, back and forth between, excuse me, the GP and the LP.
Yeah.
And it actually, as anybody that is in crypto knows, it's actually kind of a pain in the ass to actually use Bitcoin to move money around. I mean, you know, it's fine to do one transaction, but like, you know, the wait times get very long, the fees get astronomical. XRP, that never happens. Like, people complain about being more or less centralized, but if you just need to move some money very quickly and very cheaply, and by very quickly I mean within a couple seconds, getting everything verified, it's perfect.
Yeah. So is your fund denominated in XRP?
Yeah, and so Ripple is not an investor.
Sure.
None of the executives or founders of Ripple are investors.
Okay.
But they educated me to the point where I realized it's perfect for a fund to be denominated in Ripple, in XRP, and just that's how it's been. Yeah.
So there's over 1,600 cryptocurrencies today that use blockchain. So all of us have probably heard about Bitcoin, some of us about Ethereum. In Japan, almost every bank is starting to work with something called XRP, or you may know it as Ripple. And there's many others.
We realized that there are a lot of customers who have to visit a branch when you have to send money overseas to your kids studying abroad or for medical help under LRS. We said, why can't we offer a platform where customers can just come online and they can remit up to $25,000. That's what is stipulated under online for existing customers, for non-customers up to $10,000. So we brought in another product that was solving that problem. Similarly, we looked at the inward remittance and we said, while there is a lot of talk about blockchain, rather than looking at this as a concept and a POC, is there a real use case and value for customers? And this is where we brought in the inward remittance platform we integrated with Ripple. Now, this is where we are able to reach out to new corridors and bring in the remittance into India. Because unless the volumes were large, banks were reluctant in going and tying up with banks in different corridors. Now, a Ripple platform helped us fast track there. So we have been looking at each area to say, let's go and disrupt ourselves rather than waiting to be disrupted by somebody else.
Hello, I'm Ryan Zagon from Ripple. We're a company using blockchain and crypto assets to improve cross-border payments, taking payments from, say, 2 to 4 days down to a few seconds at a much lower cost. Looking at the token taxonomy topic, I want to expand the lens out some from ICOs to broader crypto. It's a broader world than just ICOs, and the importance of looking at this entire sector. So we see recognition globally that blockchain and crypto assets will play a pivotal role in the next generation of finance and our national economies. And there are countries racing to provide regulatory certainty so they can be the winner in this race. They can essentially take a stake as the global capital of finance, which is now in the US, moving elsewhere. We're seeing national holistic frameworks in other countries designed to drive the adoption of this tech. You can look at UK, Singapore, Japan. In the UK, there's now more people working in fintech than New York. Also Japan, Singapore, and Australia combined. So the race is real. They're winning because they have one framework that covers this entire technology. It gives certainty to the market across a variety of these technologies. Certainty is that prerequisite for adoption, and it's enabling much faster growth. Well, from the US's perspective, that's a strategy we invented in the early 90s with the advent of the internet. The White House came forth with one framework for electronic commerce that gave certainty to the market for internet development, and that spurred the US to be a leader in internet technology. We see opportunity to take the same opportunity or the same move today. One framework for this entire technology. From a legislative perspective, I think the one low-hanging fruit we can pull on is driving more coordination amongst regulators, particularly on token taxonomy and discussions of how risk should be addressed at company levels. What kind of mitigants, what type of best practices, and what type of licensing and registration. Thank you for your time today, and we appreciate the leadership both of you have had.
The company and XRP. I mentioned we had Brad Garlinghouse at our last panel, and that was by far the one that really generated a lot of chatter. I noticed, these holders of XRP, the token, are fanatics. I mean, they posted the panel with Garlinghouse on YouTube, bootleg style, minutes after it was over. What do you think it is about that ecosystem that so excites them? I mean, of course, there are people who love Ether, there are Bitcoin people, but and out of nowhere almost.
I mean, I think that XRP in some ways is crypto 2.0, right? It's Brad said something I thought was clever the other day. It's, Bitcoin may be the Napster of this technology, right? Where it opened our eyes to what's possible, but the failings of the technology also became apparent. The creators of XRP, before there was a company, Ripple, the creators of XRP looked at the possibilities of Bitcoin and said, wow, this could be awesome, but this could fall on its face. And so they created something that was, really a 2.0. It was a solution around a lot of the problems for Bitcoin. And they did that before they really had an imagination of the use case. It was up to, ultimately, a company of Ripple to figure out what one of the things you could do with XRP. Now, there are a lot of entrepreneurs developing other things around XRP. But to your question, why is there sort of a religious-like fervor around XRP? And I don't think it's just because the technology is better. I think it's because people have money at stake. I think that, when the internet was developed, the bottom layers of technology were free. Right, it was created by the government and universities. They wanted to propagate it by making it free, and so the value sort of flowed to the top of the food chain. There was a lot of value on a telecom level above the sort of basic level of the internet. There was even more value in sort of selling maybe hardware, the Ciscos of the world that were created. But the greatest value was in the application layer. It was Google, it was Facebook. That's where most of the money was created. There was no value assigned to the most basic layer of the technology. The creators of Bitcoin, or the inventors of the notion, the creators of XRP, they turned that on the head. In fact, across all of crypto, the most fundamental layer has a dollar price assigned to it. When your money's at stake, you start to pay a little more attention to things. And I think that that's why there is such religious fervor. I also think it's one of the reasons there is such FUD, because people who understand it.
What makes Beachhead different to other virtual reality games is that there's this marketplace underpinning it that's powered by decentralized cryptoeconomics. It's relatively easy for gamers to purchase digital assets within the games. This is a huge revenue stream for the gaming companies. This is only going to keep growing. The problem that these gamers have is, yes, it's easy to purchase that laser sword. Some people spend thousands of dollars on something like that. Once you're done with that sword, there isn't really a resale market for it. Or if there is, the only bid you're going to find for your $2,000 sword is now $200 on some shady forum, some guy you've never met. When you do decide to sell it for $200, his PayPal payment never came through. You just got scammed. I guess it was a natural next step to use the Ripple protocol to allow the users or the citizens of Beachhead to trade these different digital assets. My main role within the Beachhead project has to do with market making. I'm going to be building and maintaining liquid markets for any number of different crosses. Within Beachhead, GSR is going to be making markets on the Beachhead token against all the digital assets that are offered within the game. In parallel, we also have to make liquid markets between the Beachhead token and all the other crypto assets that exist currently, XRP, Bitcoin, Ether, etc. And by doing that and having gateways connected to, we're making markets on a synthetic digital asset within Beachhead against Bitcoin and such exchange cross. Eventually, as we connect more pools of liquidity in other games via Ripple, effectively what we're going to be doing is making markets between digital assets across different games. We hope that by building liquidity within Beachhead and then extending this through the Ripple gateways to these other pools of liquidity that exist in the gaming world, Beachhead will essentially become a nexus for all of these digital assets that currently exist in silos across the gaming world. We want the gamers to be able to exchange a lightsaber from one game for a movie ticket in the Beachhead virtual reality movie theater. And we want that exchange to be instant, secure, transparent, and almost free.
I'm going to give you a little overview of GSR. We are 35 employees. We started in November 2013. We started being primary market makers for Ripple, and since then we've provided market making services for exchanges, token issuers, And we've also, what we have right now, it's a company that serves not only providing liquidity to the market, but also sourcing liquidity to the market. We have an OTC desk, and we execute programmatic selling, buying, or programs to our customers. In many occasions, we find ourselves with customers that come to us. They have advised ICOs. They are ICOs, funders, or whales with large amounts of tokens, and they cannot get out of their positions because the market is very illiquid. It's very hard to find a buyer for an OTC side or a big size of an order on OTC. So the only way to get out of those illiquid positions is by executing programs with bots on the market. We were one of the primary market makers for Ripple, and what we've seen in the market recently, in recent months, is that new exchanges pop up, new players come in. These new exchanges try to gather attention from the market, because we all rank the exchanges in CoinMarketCap by volume. We all try to see who is the highest volume in the market. Those figures are, in many occasions, not real. We see lots of fake volumes in the market. Exchanges are finding new creative ways of incentivizing volume makers. That is not very different for market makers. Market makers are providing liquidity, and liquidity is very different, or it's different to doing wash trades.
You know, when Ripple thinks about what we're doing, you know, we've had more momentum in terms of customer sales. I think we signed about 3 production contracts. And again, these aren't experiments. These are production contracts per week in Q1. It was a record Q1 for us. 2018 was a huge year for us. So, you know, I look at where we are with blockchain, and I think the hype got ahead of the reality in terms of just people talking about, you know, provenance and even identity, which was discussed up here on the stage earlier, I think is a really hard blockchain problem that no one company is going to be able to tackle. But I think that that focus has put us in a position of, you know, lots of customer momentum, and you know, I'm super excited about 2019. I do think there's going to be more M&A. I think anytime you go through this kind of, well, crypto winter trough, you see people kind of get flushed out, and you've seen layoffs in the crypto space. I view that as a healthy part of a nascent market growing, and but you know, I think it'll force, you know, real utility and solving a real problem.
Brett, do you think that, sorry, can I ask a question, Brett? Do you think that the different blockchains are going to come together when you say that there's mergers? Do you think the Bitcoin blockchain and Ethereum are going to start to?
No, I was thinking more about, there's a lot of companies that have started. Yeah. Although I think what his question kind of underlies is, you know, there's something like 2,000 different tokens and by definition underlying blockchains. I think 99% of them go away. Yeah. I think most of them, you know, 99% is kind of a random number, but you know, if we ended up with 10.
It's a big number.
Yeah, the vast majority are going to go away. And I think it's because a lot of them were created with either an unclear use case or a use case that hasn't proven out. And you know, you already see that to some degree because there's no liquidity. And you know, ultimately in the digital asset space, you know, liquidity is critical to the success. And so, you know, we have been fortunate to build our technologies on something called the XRP ledger, and you know, that's done well.
And then, you know, Ripple, just in a matter of a few months, has gone in and taken 7.5% of the market from U.S. to Mexico for cross-border remittances, moving over, you know, our products and XRP. And that kind of scale, I don't think is possible without using these kinds of technologies that are out there today.
And so why did you guys choose the XRP ledger? I know there's a lot of work being done and standards being produced on Ethereum, and now we see competing blockchains like WeOwn, and there's a number of chains out there. So why did you choose XRP?
Yes, as you probably know, XRP has one of the fastest blockchain network. You can literally transfer fund from A to B in just a matter of seconds. and it's super, super cost efficient, obviously. And XRP Ledger gives you all the tools that you need to develop your own customized ecosystem, financial ecosystem. So we, 6 months, 7 months ago, we started to do research, and we studied Ethereum, Stellar Lumen, as well as XRP. But end of the day, we decided to go with XRP technology because of the reason that I mentioned. And one of the other reason that we selected XRP Ledger technology is the fact that one of the main components of Sologenic ecosystem is spend through the credit card, through the Solo crypto cards.
Yeah.
And we want to move money fast. We want to move liquidity from A to B like that. We don't want to wait 2-3 minutes, sometimes more than that for the money to be transferred. So that's why we choose XRP.
And before you mentioned that XRP is a lot faster and cheaper to do this, but doesn't have the same smart contract potential as Ethereum, or is it not those sort of features that you really need to do this?
Some people probably, they're not going to love that, but XRP offers you much better and a stronger technology than Ethereum. It doesn't mean that I'm against Ethereum. No, I'm not against either. I like Ether. I have personal investment in it, so that's a great technology and coin. But XRP, it's our opinion,
Yeah.
It offers better technology, and that's why we selected XRP.
Yeah, I guess my question was, you don't need that smart contract capability of Ethereum to do that.
Very similar. They do have very similar, basically features. You can in XRP Ledger. Okay. They're a smart contract as well. So yeah.
Fantastic. I didn't know they were that far along. So that is something that I do want to learn more about as well.
Now, if I'm sitting in the U.S. and I'm MoneyGram and I want to send $1,000 to you and you're in Mexico and I want to convert that to pesos, using RippleNet, you go into the marketplace and you go to a crypto exchange or a crypto market maker and you buy $1,000 worth of XRP. You send that XRP to Mexico. The market maker or the exchange in Mexico then converts it to pesos and then delivers it to the ultimate consumer. That transaction takes 3 to 5 seconds, whereas under traditional SWIFT network, that would take 3 to 5 days. MoneyGram, in their recent quarterly conference call, which took place 3 or 4 weeks ago, their CEO says on that conference call that this is as close to instantaneous transfer of money humanly possible that he has ever seen, which was a pretty powerful quote. Treasurers, if you're a treasurer of a bank, you love this solution because you control your balance sheet, you control the time of day that you want to execute the trade, and you control the cost of the trade because you can delay the trade until you get the price that you want to execute the trade.
Great, thank you.
Fast enough digital asset, XRP is 3 seconds to settle. You're out of it in 3 seconds. That's actually lower volatility than the US dollar that takes days to settle. So, so stablecoins, what they're trying to create isn't really a problem that needs solving. I'd put a big separation on the proof of work coins because I just think, again, with climate change, those are kind of unacceptable methods when you have to chew that kind of electricity up just to confirm a transaction, which...
So my name is Domantas. I'm co-founder and CEO at TransferGo. TransferGo is a platform for cross-border payments, enabling individuals and businesses to move value internationally at a fraction of the cost of traditional methods. Today we service more than 1 million customers worldwide. Our standard customer is someone who's migrated abroad to provide for their friends and family back home. And we call them the global citizen. It's economic migrants who choose to live in geographies that are just better for their family's livelihood. And they migrate because they will need to send money, so it's not an optionality for them, it's a necessity. our first Ripple-enabled corridor is money transfers into India from Europe. And we're already alive for the last 6 months, and we're moving tens of millions of pounds already into India via Ripple-enabled blockchain solution. So Ripple's technology at its core has to make present transactions more secure. It means you need to have less investments in making it secure, right? Secondly, it should decrease the cost of moving value, which has happened, and it also should increase the speed. So all of these things are coming true. So the future, we see that the future is going to be blockchain enabled, and Ripple technology is a very good use case that's already been proven. So we've moved beyond proof of concept. Now we are into scaling and picking the right corridors to come in, the most underserved corridors that people really need such an option to send money. And now for us, just identifying new corridors, new remittance gateways, and then going for scale at this point. The future for TransferGo is scale and additional product offerings. So today we're 1 million customers, we're going to be 10 million customers in the next 5 to 7 years. Because the only way to really change people's lives is to bring it to as many of them as possible. So that's the next chapter for us. At the same time, we see that our customers are underserved across a variety of verticals, not just cross-border payments. Therefore, we're going to continue to follow the customer and try to solve their financial lives, one product at a time.
Today, Pakistan is adopting blockchain rapidly. We have Telenor Bank and Financial, a partnership between them for remittance to be brought in from Malaysia into Pakistan today using blockchain. The second implementation right now is at Faisal Bank and Ripple, which is being used to be able to remit money from different countries into Pakistan using blockchain, and Ripple being the foundation behind it. There are other implementations being considered right now as well. So I believe adoption is high. We have, I think, quite a number of small companies in Pakistan that are working in the blockchain space, typically underground because of the circumstances and situations here. However, they're doing some phenomenal work in multiple platforms like NEM and Hyperledger. I believe the opportunity is there. Right now it's ripe. Universities are beginning to adopt blockchain trainings as well. Skill-based training is required because we don't have the skills in Pakistan yet, but most of the guys are self-taught. We need to have a little bit more in terms of educational foundations and certifications in place so that we can expand it to expand their skill base. But the opportunity is there, and integration with AI is also coming in. Quantum computing is going to influence blockchain immensely as well. So there are so many opportunities that we need to consider.
So I will talk about XRP community. There is no Ripple community. Ripple community is the banks, but that's again purely because of the software they are using. When you talk about the XRP community, I think the one reason why XRP has such a strong backing is because of the speed, the intrinsic characteristics of XRP. So number one, the biggest aspect is the speed of XRP. So to give you an example, in December, January of this year, when we saw the markets really heating up, everybody wanted to get in, buy or sell. But it was frustrating because if you were buying Bitcoin or Ethereum, you could take hours before the tokens actually reach your wallet. But when you tried buying XRP, within 3 seconds, you will have XRP in your wallet. So if you wanted to move funds or cryptos from one exchange to the other, you could use XRP as a base currency. So that was one use case. Number two, a lot of people were using XRP to send money from one country to the other because, again, it was very easy for them to move and very cost efficient and very, very fast. So because of these intrinsic characteristics of XRP, namely scalability, speed, and cost, there was a huge fan following of XRP. And now what we are seeing is more and more exchanges across the globe are using XRP as a base currency, which typically always was Bitcoin. But now we are seeing more and more hedge funds, other funds using arbitrage strategies, using XRP as a base currency to move funds. Then there was one more use case where because of these intrinsic characteristics, a lot of people who were across different ages. So single moms used XRP as an investment opportunity. People going into grad school used XRP as an investment opportunity and were able to pay their tuition fee. So there were these things also which created in making this community stronger. So I would say because of all these reasons, there is such a fan following for XRP.
To connect all payment systems around the world by creating unprecedented payment corridors between, for example, PayPal and M-Pesa, and therefore creating unprecedented interoperability by using the Interledger protocol. So a quick excursus to what is the Interledger protocol. It is a cross-ledger payment technology suite invented by the ex-CTO of Ripple and a lead software engineer there. It works similarly like the internet, with instead of information being forwarded across networks, packets of money are routed via connectors, and you have conditional transfers securing the transaction across different payment networks and an address format. So a quick example, on the one hand, perhaps you have a PayPal customer like myself, and you have my good old friend Barack Obama in Kenya using M-Pesa, and then we at Styra and through our connectors help you establish the payment channel. You can send payments across, and we take care of clearing, settlement, and sourcing the liquidity, exactly. So in the first instance, you can also do that for cryptocurrencies, which we did in the first instance, and we're sort of the backbone provider of the Interledger network. And just like Deutsche Telekom and AT&T are internet service providers, hooking you up to the internet, we hook you up to the sort of internet of payments, if you will. And yes, I'm glad to announce that the product is going live today. So you can just visit Styra.network. It's sort of a gateway to the Interledger network. We provide you with all the resources you need. And then you can build your own nodes, own connectors, send packets of money. It's not real money at the start. And if you have any questions, just shoot us an email at support@Styra. It's not our website, it's just the gateway. Exactly. And an overview of our potential customers, everything from blockchain startup to payment providers, mobile money service providers, and also e-mobility and social media. So the market is the payment mobile wallet market is a very large market with over 6 trillion transactions for 2019 expected, and over 2 billion people doing mobile wallet transactions.
You look at, I think you know a little bit about the financial side of this.
It's interesting, and I swear I actually just met two of these panelists for the first time just off stage, so we actually didn't have any conversation, but we're in remarkable agreement. I think blockchain is really good for money. Like just kind of full stop. Like it's exactly that. It's like when you need to transact trustlessly transact and exchange value, and like value almost always comes down to money. Like if it's not worth money, it's not valuable. So we think like blockchain is really great for money generally, and that's what we're focused on at Ripple. I'm also very interested in kind of the next generation of financial products. So things that look like futures, forwards, derivatives, debt. And can they be created in a trustless manner without counterparty risk? And it sounds like we actually feel like we're getting pretty close to some of these, so we're really, really excited about that. We're also at Ripple really interested in interoperability. We think that there's going to be lots and lots of blockchains in the future, and we don't think people are going to be carrying thousands of wallets and have to go to some specific exchange and buy some specific token and come back to some specific project and spend it there. I think like there's going to be a layer of interoperability. We are focused on one called Interledger protocol, but we think there's lots of opportunities there. And then gaming, I'm a huge believer in as well. But we saw this at Facebook, like the early adopters from the developer standpoint were the game developers, and they just understand how to like pick apart a platform. They've also been operating virtual economies inside of games for a decade or so. So they actually understand the economics of kind of supply, demand, money supply more than most people.
I think there was a comment a little bit like, well, Alipay is just embedding in New York City taxis as a, addressing the tourists. Alipay has grand ambitions in the United States. Really? I agree 100% with Dan that each market has its unique.
Do they admit that? I'm not sure they admit that, but you think that that's they eventually want to be a big player in payments here?
I think there's no doubt about that.
What makes you say that?
I'm sure Dan and I both have had conversations with people at both those companies, and I think this is a large economy. They want growth. They think about. I mean, Alipay in particular has been incredibly strategic about making investments and stitching together. They're the largest shareholder in Paytm. They're the largest shareholder in can't remember the payment network in Indonesia. And they're in some ways they're building their own version of an interoperable payment network, but closed to their world.
And at some point, basically, we started talking to very large money transmitters. The one that I can speak about publicly, because there's some other story that's been public about it, is MoneyGram. And MoneyGram's actually, if you go into their last earnings call, they specifically talked about utilizing the XRP ledger to basically do these transactions. But the flow is basically the same. They basically pre-fund an account in the United States with US dollars, and whenever they want to move money to Mexico, they basically convert dollars to XRP, move the XRP over to Bitso, and then convert that XRP over to pesos, and then you withdraw those funds. No?
So you're on the other side of most of the MoneyGram flow now.
Exactly. So not Bitso specifically, but the customers of Bitso that make up our market, right? Like our exchange. At the end of the day, what we've built is a platform that intermediates buyers and sellers, just like Coinbase Pro, like a Bitstamp. And so we have customers that take the other side of the flow that MoneyGram, and there's a fair amount of other players using ODL at different levels, right? Like, MoneyGram is one of them, but there's various other players with different lines of businesses that and business models that are now using this solution to move money abroad, where we are finally capitalizing on the huge cross-border flow that exists between the US and Mexico, which is about $33 billion, between $30 and $36 billion a year flows between the US and Mexico. And we're finally at a place where we're starting to, we've built a product, we built a product alongside with Ripple, and we're seeing significant amount of traction. And we believe that this is just the beginning of something, right? Like this is the beginning of something a lot more exciting and interesting.
I mean, it's phenomenal growth. So, by the end of this year, I think you'd set out to have a target of, was it north of 10%? Well, there was some shock number that I saw. So the total kind of remittance volume, you think out of that $33 billion quarter, you think you could take about what percentage or what total amount this year?
So again, using that weekly metric instead of sort of like the entire year, which is what we're tracking is that weekly volume of remittances.
Well, it's running, right? Yeah.
Right. Our stretch goal, like the stretch goal that I have set for the company, is that we get to 20% of the weekly remittances by the end of 2020. And we just launched a beta in Argentina, which should become a full-blown experience starting next month. And we have a team in Brazil that is actively looking into Brazil. It's an interesting jurisdiction because it's a very, very large market. It's the largest economy in Latin America. Bitcoin, Mexican pesos had always been our largest trading pair, and that has flipped for us now. So
I noticed that.
Our XRP MXN book is consistently trading higher than our Bitcoin MXN book. And that's been the case already for the last, I believe, I actually have the graph here. I'm not going to pull it up, but I believe that's been already the case for at least the last 8 weeks.
I was just at a Ripple launch event last night, and it's all about DeFi. They want to be the open platform for money, and XRP, a core focus for them is making sure XRP is one of the main assets used when someone's interacting with a DeFi application. So, and I think that's true across the board for all these large cap cryptocurrencies. So we're going to just see more and more investment from those that have already established themselves, and the developers that are new and coming into the space, they're going to start developing on things that are not just Ethereum.
So you're dealing with a lot of financial institutions, banks around the world. What are the challenges you have as Ripple dealing with them? Obviously, somebody's been making money on this process for many years. You're changing that. You're making it much more efficient. What are the challenges that you have working with the banks and financial institutions now?
Yeah, so I mean, again, we were really naive early on. So we thought
listen, Citibank, great, great company to go after. If we get Citibank on Ripple, you get, 1/3 of all cross-border payments on Ripple. That turns out Citibank likes to be slow because they make a lot of money being slow, and they like to charge a lot of fees because they make a lot of, So then we sort of thought, like, who's the hungry ones? And so, we started finding, small providers like, Bex in Brazil. You may not have heard of them, but they're one of the fastest growing fintechs in Brazil. But they're small and scrappy. They want to compete with the big guys. Itaú is another client of Ripple. They are a small, they're not a small bank sorry. All right. They're not a global mega bank like Citibank, but they are a massive Brazilian bank. But they are a super regional bank. And using this technology, you can take a super regional player, a hungry player, and make them global and compete with the big guys like Citibank. And so that's like a powerful story to tell, local super regional players, massive super regional players, but, super regional players, use this technology to connect you to the rest of the world and offer something that Citibank can't offer its clients. And that is the ability to send any size payment, the ability to service e-commerce customers, the fastest growing segment of payments out there today.
Right now, the IMF is doing a lot of work in this space, and it consists of several different initiatives. First of all, we have a very active program of research and publication. We've published major studies on what were then called virtual currencies, aka crypto assets, and on the potential impact of fintech on the cross-border payments market. We are engaging very closely with the private sector and the industry, and last year put in place a high-level advisory group of industry leaders from the private and public sectors to help guide us in our work on fintech. I'm very happy to say that Chris Larsen, one of the co-founders of Ripple, and Supnendo Mohante from the Monetary Authority of Singapore are both part of that group, and we're very grateful for the advice that they give us.
We're taking a payment flow that might be going from dollar to Mexican peso, and you're holding a dollar, you're selling that dollar and buying XRP, you're moving that XRP across the XRP ledger to, let's say, Bitso, who's here in the audience today. You're selling the XRP and you're buying Mexican peso. By enabling that liquidity to move from dollar to peso in real time, you're changing how that oil is greasing the engine of correspondent banking. So for us, in a world of hype, in a world of experimentation, in a world where people talk about the opportunity and really the speculation of digital assets, we feel like XRP is the only digital asset really poised to solve a problem at scale, a global payments problem.
Now, firstly, just to start off, what was the main reason that you earmarked XRP as such an important currency for you guys to add?
Number one reason, top reason, our customers requested it. That's kind of how I drive and the team drives product decisions here, is really listening and having empathy with what our business customers, what our consumer customers are all asking for. And XRP, top 4 cryptocurrency. They have a very strong, very robust community behind XRP. And we heard our users and our business customers specifically loud and clear. That, like you said, we have Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, a number of different stable coins, but XRP was the next one on the list, and we were happy to incorporate that also.
So then, Sean, let me flip this around, though. I mean, given XRP, it is the number 3 crypto out there. It has an avid fan base, and many argue, particularly those big fans of XRP, a multitude of use cases. Why did it take so long to include XRP into the BitPay system?
Well, look, honestly, like, we could support every cryptocurrency that exists, thousands and thousands of them. But if you don't have robust, concrete, good tools for your merchants for businesses to accept payments, it's all pointless, to be honest. So what we've really focused on is how do we provide value? How do we be best in class in the payment tools that our customers like AT&T and American Cancer Society, what do they expect? What are they used to when credit card accepting, with accepting checks for payments? And we want to make sure that cryptocurrency payments are just as easy to use on the back end and on the front end for our businesses. So that's really where we had a lot of focus in the past. And now we feel we're in a really good place regarding those tools. And so now it's really ready to amp up in terms of what cryptocurrencies.
Hi,
I'm Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO here at Ripple. It's an honor and really a privilege for us to be one of the founding members of the International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications. This really is a pivotal time for the distributed ledger technology industry. It's critical that as an industry, we come together and engage with regulators and with governments globally. The work we're seeing with the European Commission is pivotal and can be leading in this effort. We're thrilled to be involved and look forward to being a leading participant.
Driving this change is really the expectation and the existing customer experience. Faster payments are being put in every single country. If you look at India, Australia, Singapore, that means money can be delivered from person A to person B instantly. And what it is creating is velocity within the specific country. And now this is happening cross-border as well. And the outcome of that is that you essentially increase the velocity of money in a country and getting higher GDP growth rates. Asian financial institutions are collaborating with fintechs to fundamentally change the way international remittances work today. To make it easy, seamless, the combination of that is creating a very powerful offering for customers.
So do you actually have a product that can replace the SWIFT system with the Ripple system?
So all our customers today, so for example, I don't know how many of you have heard Anna Botten. If you read the FT and you Google Anna Botten, who's the chairwoman of Santander, she mentioned that she has already launched on the back of Ripple services in 4 markets. That means UK, Poland, Brazil, and Spain. And 50% of all retail volumes of Santander goes on the Ripple platform. It's live, you can experience it today. And they tested us for 2 years. For 2 years, they made sure that every part of Ripple solution was compliant, was as effective as we are saying, and after that, they've essentially put a big, large bet on Ripple to be able to move their infrastructure. And yes, in all those 50% of the transactions, they have replaced SWIFT because that's what was happening earlier.
Excellent. Yes, I was aware that Santander were doing some private testing internally for using Ripple, and then now they're in public, which is fantastic.
And it was important enough for Anna Botten to herself talk about it, so you can gauge their interest levels.
So, how does we've got a couple products on the market, but the one that is most active in using XRP, using a digital asset or cryptocurrency, whatever you want to call it, is XRapid. And XRapid is the thing that we use that accesses cross-border liquidity, and it turns a certain fiat currency into XRP and XRP into another fiat currency, and does it all super quickly using exchanges that trade it. And there are over 90 exchanges that trade it. So let's use an example of moving money, let's say, from San Francisco to Mexico City. A bank will fire up a transaction, or a financial institution, a remittance company. Using our software, it's routed to an exchange, in this case Bittrex, one of the preferred exchanges, an exchange that is really focused not just on trading of cryptocurrencies for investors, but actually for payments. Focused on payments, Bittrex makes the exchange from US dollar to XRP. XRP is settled, it goes to Mexico on an exchange, XRP is traded into Mexican pesos and into the delivery bank. In this case, it took 1:20 to do this. This is a real example. This is how this works. Imagine right now a system where you're sending money and it takes you 3 days. And you don't know where it's going, and when it's hung up, you don't know why. You're not sure who to call. You don't even know what the cost is going to be. Your bank might quote you only 600 basis points because they don't really know where the costs are going to be along the line. The bank might make money or lose money. 30% of all money transfers across borders result in a customer phone call, which quite often can eat up the cost for the bank of what they thought they're going to make in profit. So it's this system, moving money, again, from XRP through Bittrex into XRP, from US dollar to XRP, from XRP to peso, all in 1:20 with 100% accuracy, really is a game changer for the world of cross-border payments. Because right now, all of these payment networks are disconnected. The banks, the potential to use blockchain, mobile money when we're using Venmo or Zelle or something, which is a fancy Ferrari body on a jalopy engine, these online wallets, none of this stuff is connected. But blockchain doesn't solve this problem on its own because you're not connecting all these other networks that people use to manage their money or to move them.
How are you?
Guys, we're recording, okay? So, thank you. Okay? Because I have something in me. Okay. Ripple is on a mission to make money more accessible to people all around the world. Today, international payments can be too expensive for folks around the globe that want to make a difference. Ripple is working to change that because Ripple is a company that cares deeply about giving back. Thank you, Ripple.
God bless you, Madonna. God bless you, Madonna. God bless you, Madonna.
Earlier today, we did a press release announcing we've now passed over 300 customers, and we continue to add 2 to 3 customers per week. We now reach 6 continents and have payout capabilities in 70 different countries. We're seeing growth 10x on a year-on-year basis. In fact, RippleNet did more transactions in October than we did in all of 2018.
So I will start. I personally, based on experience that we see today, we see that a lot on the national level. So for instance, when they buy or they adopt, a bank decide to adopt Ripple, in this case, they have to go to their central banks, especially in the local markets, more exotic countries, and they have to get the approval of the local banks, central banks, because they have to ensure that, okay, if you're talking about Ripple or the technology, you're not necessarily talking about the usage of the crypto assets. I think that's very important so they understand that there are 2 different things. And, you know, the way that we are actually diffusing the technology is that we don't put any obligation on the users to use digital assets. So you can use our technology, you can use DLC by, you know, sending fiat currencies. That's very important. Once they have the approval, you see that this is cascading down to the rest. I think it was a question that who is the most important or more appropriate body to go internationally, like internet. You don't have just a national level. But I think that has not yet been really concluded, but I think there are some good candidates. We have to see which one is more agile and giving more, let's say, a try on that. But it takes lots of time, but I think national level is already a good start.
So I think I've got Mike Arrington from Arrington XRP Capital. Mike, nice to have you back on Crypto Trader.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So why do you start a fund that is denominated in Ripple? In XRP?
Why did you hate Ripple so much before last week?
I didn't think that Ripple had a use case. I now know that it does have a use case, and it's a very powerful tool on XRapid.
Do you think, here's my theory. You got on their case a little bit to encourage them to spend the time with you that you wanted to spend with them so that you could then sort of call them, you want to be the kingmaker, which you're becoming. I've watched you progress over the last year, and you've gone from relatively lower sort of ability to do that to somebody who everybody's dying to be on your show. They're lining up here to be on it. So I just think maybe it was more about that, kingmaking than anything else. I do. Here's why. Okay, to be more serious. I told you this in December. I think you were also confused back then, like everybody is. Ripple, or in this case XRP is the actual currency, is a really, really good way to move money. So we denominate our fund in XRP because it's a fantastic way to move money cross-border very quickly at almost zero cost. So there's a lot of tribalism in cryptocurrency and a lot of Bitcoin maximalists, etc. And the one thing they all agree on is they all hate XRP because it's centralized, they think it's corporate managed, etc. I mean, none of that's really true. But what it is a fantastic way to move money. And while the other more decentralized cryptocurrencies sort of find their way towards becoming more efficient, in the meantime, XRP is like fantastic. And so from a hedge fund point of view, it's great to denominate ourselves in XRP.
So I must admit, the XRP token is a very fast-moving token and a great token to move cross-border very quickly.
Where are then the power centers? Where does bank like Amazon? I always think they should be doing this. This is kind of something.
Well, I think it's an interesting question, and you are seeing.
It's the one company I think, not Facebook. Everyone's always Facebook. I'm like, not Facebook. It's Amazon.
Well, I mean, obviously Apple has announced some things recently with Apple Pay.
Yeah.
Amazon has made some noises and partnered with Chase and some things. I think you're going to continue to see digital-first companies lean into this space, and to the extent it can be done better, then I think you're going to see companies like Amazon say, I have a ton of respect for Amazon, and I think if Amazon were to offer solutions around payments, do you think it would take 4 days to send a payment to London?
No.
And cost, actually, a gentleman who used to work at Ripple sent me an email this week. He had invested in a company in Europe, and he had a 4% fee. It was an investment, so it wasn't a small check. A 4% fee by the time that is all settled.
Right. to get the money there.
Yeah, like that is crazy. And I just think that if Amazon were to aggressively enter this market, and you asked the question earlier, what is the incentive for the biggest of the big, the cities, to lean in? Well, if they don't, and Amazon launches
or Apple
or fill in blank,
right?
Where does that leave them?
Right.
If you want to do e-commerce payments globally, these companies are left with no choice but to build their own payments infrastructure. But we think that there's a better way. We think that you can deliver a standard for these companies. We think that you can, take this experience and bundle it up for these customers. We want Airbnb focused on delivering, a great stays around the world. Uber getting, people where they need to be, and Amazon delivering 5 packages a day to my house. And we want to be focused on helping these companies move money globally, and that's really our mission. So, one API, instant payments, and we want to make that more efficient than it is today.
We talked to a lot of our customers around the world, and I was surprised that even large customers, it takes them 3 to 5 days to get the payment where it needs to be. And, this was the case of Amazon paying merchants cross-border and taking weeks for that payment to arrive.
So, here's one about Canada, actually. So one of our viewers is interested in learning more about Ripple's plan in Canada. So let me talk a little bit about how we choose which markets we bring on-demand liquidity to, just for a little bit of context. So on-demand liquidity, again, is really serves to solve the pain point of sending low-value cross-border transactions. So we do take a look at where are the flows today, like how much money is being sent into or out of a particular market, to help us to address and prioritize the different countries that we're interested in. In addition, we take a look at the infrastructure for XRP, whether or not we have good digital asset exchanges and liquidity in those markets, and how robust we think the offering can be. And then primarily, we're looking for customers who tell us that they're interested in either receiving money into particular markets or sending money from particular markets. So this question will go into our vault of noting that there's interest in Canada. Canada is a great market. We feel that there's good regulatory clarity there. There's good partner interest in sending out of Canada in particular. And so that market is certainly on a short list, and we'll get back to you with the exact times that Canada might be available.
Ripple has been engaging with lots of central banks around the world. Why is Ripple doing that?
Well, central banks are both regulators of their financial ecosystem, but also they operate the payment systems in their own countries. So when new technology like this comes along, they can be inhibitors of the use of that technology or really catalysts for innovation.
How else is Ripple engaging with central banks?
In my role at Ripple, I'm more interested in getting central banks to get their feet wet with DLT and with crypto assets. And that makes a big difference in the adoption of these technologies. Here, for example, Bahrain and Abu Dhabi Global Markets are leading the world in the development of regulatory frameworks for the use of crypto assets. And that's got to be a good thing for the ecosystem.
So the thing about what XRP, the role that it plays, this supporting role, Ripple doesn't require you to ever use XRP, even in a trade. I mean, the cool thing here is that anybody in the world now using Ripple can put a bid ask on anything of value from any issuer. So for example, somebody could decide, I'm going to make a market between United Airline miles, if, once United Airline miles are on Ripple, I hope they will be someday, to Brazilian real. You could go directly. You don't actually have to go through XRP. But what we believe will happen is that most market makers, in filling out the world of exchanging value from anything of value, again, currencies, merchant reward points, airline miles, gold, silver, anything that you define as value, most people will actually, most market makers will use XRP. Because as a currency without a counterparty, it is a completely unique thing in the protocol, just like Bitcoin is completely unique. So again, our view of why math-based currencies are so valuable isn't necessarily that they replace existing currencies, it's just that they have a very unique feature in that they have no counterparty. So the whole world, the world only has to think about one thing when it comes to Bitcoin or Ripple, is the price in any microsecond in time. You never have to think about the counterparty risks. It turns out that that is a completely unique thing that's never existed before. So why is that important? Let's say we use the example of a farmer in Nepal wanting to buy farming equipment from a supplier in Kenya, let's say. If you didn't have the math-based currency, even in an internet for value, you'd probably have to go Nepalese rupee to Indian rupee to British pounds to Kenyan shilling. That's That's a lot of hops.
Right, and you're going to lose a good amount of money on each hop.
You lose value on every hop, right? Because you're involving currencies with counterparties, things of value with counterparty. It'd be much better to go Nepalese rupee to XRP through a market maker, and then there's some other market maker that has made a market between Kenyan shilling and XRP. Now, Nepal and Kenya are one hop away. You're actually one hop away from airline miles, and everything is one hop away. That's why a math-based currency, we think, is really unique and really has value.
We've been looking at ways cryptocurrencies can be a force for positive change. One example is Ripple. It's a platform used to make international monetary transactions faster and cheaper. Now, one way Ripple facilitates that is by using the cryptocurrency XRP. I asked CEO Brad Garlinghouse to explain what XRP actually is and how it all works. Listen in.
XRP is like a Bitcoin. It's a digital asset. It's today the third most valuable digital asset. And what we do is we take a transaction between banks, and instead of having a bank pre-fund an account at the other bank, which is how correspondent banking works today, the Bank of Brad in dollars would pre-fund to the Bank of Julia, perhaps in pounds, and then I would debit and credit that. But that means I have to pre-fund and have dormant capital sitting at that other bank. What we allow banks to do, we allow payment providers to do, is to tap into the liquidity of XRP liquidity. So today there's lots of liquidity between XRP and US dollar. There's lots of liquidity between XRP and British pound. And you could tap into that to move value in real time, in seconds. And even compared to Bitcoin, which takes up to 12 minutes to complete one transaction, XRP is extremely fast at about 3 seconds per transaction. That has meant XRP is extremely scalable in contrast to how Bitcoin works.
So it basically goes, Bank Brad has dollars, dollars get transferred to XRP, then XRP is transferred to sterling, and sterling then hits Bank Julia. That's how it works.
That's exactly right. And so from a consumer point of view and how we're working with, for example, a MoneyGram, the consumer itself doesn't actually see that it's flowing through XRP to solve the problem. What the consumer sees is simply a better product at a better price. That's good for MoneyGram, that's good for MoneyGram's customers. And so we're seeing more momentum than we've ever had around using XRP to move this liquidity around the world. And so we couldn't really be happier about how that has played out in a world where there's still a lot, I think, of FUD, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt about what's going on in crypto. This is a real use case solving a real problem for real customers.
Okay, so which banks right now are actually using Ripple?
Well, we have signed up about over 200 banks around the world. Some of those banks just use our software to do that debit and credit, fiat to fiat, and some of them are using XRP in those flows. We have banks like Santander that we've been working with for years and are moving lots of volume through the Ripple's technology. And then, as I mentioned earlier, payment providers like MoneyGram or Ria or Asimov that are using XRP actually to move that liquidity and really reducing their cost and improving the product.
Just in terms of the transactions, though, that you're seeing using Ripple, what proportion of those actually use XRP versus direct? And just where do you see that ratio going? I'm just trying to get a sense of sort of how much XRP itself is actually used as part of the Ripple platform.
So I would say the order of magnitude, the way to think about it, is similar to the proportion of customers. So if we've got, I don't know, a couple hundred customers we have launched, 10 to 15 of them we've talked about using XRP. I would use that ratio as the total ratio between what's happening with Ripple's technology overall.
XRP, like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, has been volatile. I asked Brad if the message to investors is don't use XRP to speculate.
People are going to speculate on different asset classes. People speculate on gold, currencies. You name it, people are going to speculate. When we think about this, and what I've said very publicly is I think the long-term value of any digital asset is going to be derived from the utility it delivers. There is a lot of hype in the crypto market space. We've seen that even recently. A lot of attention around what's going on with Libra and Facebook's announcement around Libra. Today, that's just a white paper. It actually isn't. It isn't live. It hasn't launched. And so I think that the hype often gets ahead of reality in many technologies, and I think that's true in the crypto space as well. what I would encourage any person looking at this marketplace is to really understand what is real, what is not real, and understand, is there a use case? Is there utility? Bitcoin, I'm long Bitcoin, and Bitcoin I think has real utility around being a store of value. It's digital gold. But if a Bitcoin transaction takes on average 12 minutes to confirm and the transaction cost is over $1 per transaction, that's not going to be great for a payments solution. So around payments, we think XRP is uniquely and extremely well positioned to solve that payments problem. It's extremely fast at about 3 seconds per transaction, and it costs about 1/1000th of a penny to actually enable that transaction. So we often make the point that, well, where Bitcoin is very profound in solving that store of value, an XRP transaction's about 1,000 times faster and it's about 1,000 times cheaper per transaction.
I saw some Twitter traffic, one in particular, Crypto BitLord, that's threatened to take over because they say that you, the company, is dumping, that you're pushing supply out to the market. Can you explain to me the difference between XRP and Bitcoin with regards supply and with regards how much ownership Ripple itself actually has as a proportion of XRP out there at this moment?
Okay, so the first thing to understand is these are all open source technologies. When people talk about, forking technologies, you have seen Bitcoin forked multiple times. You have Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin BSV, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin, I can't name them all. There's 4 or 5 forks of the Bitcoin blockchain. Bitcoin, obviously, the primary BTC has remained kind of the most notable. But in the same way, people can take XRP and open source technology, and hypothetically, they could fork that if they chose to do so. Now, around the ownership piece, as is the case with Bitcoin, there's some big whales that were early in the Bitcoin community. There's one wallet that has 1 million Bitcoin in it. Nobody knows who owns it. In the XRP community, Ripple is the largest owner. And the point I have made is we are the most interested party in the success of the XRP ecosystem. We're very focused on our use case and how do we solve problems with XRP. But one of the things I'm excited about is you're seeing a growing ecosystem of other players investing in other use cases around XRP. Just recently, we announced a partnership with Coil, which is doing micropayments for content. So next time you're reading a story on the Financial Times website and you hit that paywall, you hypothetically just pay, hey, here's a dime, here's a quarter, here's 50 cents. Where today, that's a pretty hard problem. And companies like Coil are going to use XRP for those micropayment transactions. So yes, Ripple owns a lot of XRP. We're very interested in the success of XRP. But the accusations of us dumping, that's not in our best interest to do that. We're clearly interested in a healthy, successful ecosystem, and so we would never do that, and in fact have taken steps to lock up most of the XRP we own in escrow such that we can't touch it.
Interesting. So, but you agree that you can control the price to some degree because ultimately the Ripple community has so much power, no?
No, I mean, if you look at the correlations between XRP and most of the crypto market, or what are often called the altcoins, you see a very high degree of correlation. Ripple can't control the price of XRP any more than, the whales can control the price of Bitcoin. Some of these markets, particularly smaller tokens that are, have a lower market cap and lower float, if you will, they are at risk of people manipulating them. But, you're talking about XRP trades, order of magnitude $1 billion, according to CoinMarketCap, trades, on order of magnitude $1 billion a day of activity. So I don't think anybody's in a position to really manipulate those prices.
It's quite funny. One of the big questions that I was asked when I was talking to people about XRP, they said, what price do you sell XRP to the financial institutions that you're dealing with here? Do you give them a discount, and is there a lockup? Can you answer those questions? Because this kept coming up.
Yeah, sure. So, let's use MoneyGram as the example. When MoneyGram is moving money from US dollar to Mexican peso, they're buying at market. They're not, there's no, special sweetheart deal there. There are times when we work with institutional investors who might say, hey, we want to buy $10 million of XRP, and we would have lockups that would prevent them from dumping. We don't want some other party buying a whole lot of XRP and dumping it on the market. And so we would hypothetically have restrictions about what they could sell and what, how often. And usually those are based upon volume in the market.
Yeah, so you might give them slightly cheaper, but you say to them, hey, you're not allowed to sell it for 6 months, let's say, or a year.
Yeah, correct. That's basically correct.
So just at a time when cryptocurrency investments are battling to become more mainstream, a behemoth facing some skepticism on its own part is trying to enter the space. Facebook announced plans to launch its own cryptocurrency recently, Libra. Now, their scale could be potent. Could that be a bad thing or a good thing, though, going forward? I asked Brad that very question.
I think it's been net good for the industry to bring the attention that Libra has brought on the industry. I think that part of the maturation of the industry is that transparency and that debate, that healthy debate. And so net, I think it's been a good thing. I think it's way too early to predict exactly what the implications are going to be. You know, Facebook, obviously, as a consumer-oriented company, came out and talked about how they're more aggressively competing with financial institutions. They highlighted Western Union as an example. And so our view is, hey, we can partner with those financial institutions and help them solve a problem at scale that we've talked about here. So I think it's too early to tell. I think Facebook came out in a way that probably wasn't as engaging to regulators as maybe they could have been, and that stirred up a lot of concern. And we've made the point that we shouldn't paint the entire crypto industry with a broad brush. There's different types of projects. Some are trying to be very regulatory compliant, like what Ripple is doing with XRP. There's also some that are trying to circumvent regulators, things like Monero, that are intentionally trying to be, they're about anonymity. And so I think, as regulators look at the category, they just need to be thoughtful about not painting it with one broad brush, and that's really what we've tried to emphasize.
The CEO of Ripple.
Very cool. And while talking about all these different projects, you're an investor in Ripple and a slew of other companies.
I was actually the second person ever involved in Ripple. So Jed came to me in 2012 after we knew each other through Mt. Gox, and he said, I have an idea on how to make Bitcoin that doesn't require mining. I think mining is wasteful because it uses a lot of electricity. So if we can figure out how to do it without all the mining, that would be great. So I said, okay, that sounds great to me. So I paid David Schwartz his salary, who's still to this day the CTO of Ripple. I paid his salary for the first year or so of him working on Ripple. So technically, you could say I was the second person ever involved in Ripple. So, wow. Which is a fun piece of history there as well. So I've never, ever been a Bitcoin maximalist, if you want to touch on that thing. So I've always been a utilitarian maximalist. Whatever's the most useful to the most number of people in the world, that's what I'm going to support.
In our world, we focused on the cryptography, and we recreated an internet model, and we recreated an IP protocol, which we call ILP. And then we used that technique to create a network which is infinitely scalable, like the internet, which is kind of, we're working with about 120 banks around the world. And we've gone for the infrastructure day one. And that's really brought us a very long way. The prize is, you get this right, you change everything. It's just transformational. But it's a heavy lift to get there. So we're in a good place, but it's been a hard journey. The interesting point is the real kind of carrot to really make our customers want to do this with Ripple is the impact they have on their customers. So when we try to describe the impact to the internal organization, it doesn't really fire people up, because you're looking at how you can manage your costs, manage your internals. It's not the same thing as saying to a CEO they can transform how they go to market. They can change how they appeal to their customers. They can do many, many things they couldn't do beforehand. So I think it's concentrating on the end customer, the end experience, that really fires people up. And if customers and banks can look at this in terms of the vision, the prize in this journey, there's much more energy than just looking in terms of a spreadsheet or an ROI and getting into some very low scale stuff. So it's worth aiming high.
I'm going to ask you the question that they all want an answer to, particularly from the two banks. How long are we talking? So, before we actually see, financial institutions using blockchain technology to do processes?
Now. Yeah, our banks processed our first $1 billion this month, and since we launched, and we'll quickly do our second and third and fourth, and the network's building. Every day, people transact over Ripple, 2 seconds from Japan to Thailand, Sweden to the USA. So the message I have is, careful with this stuff because it's real. This is not out there 5 years on. It's happening, and like frogs being boiled in water, if you're not careful, it's too late to jump, the world's moved.
Ripple has been engaging with lots of central banks around the world. Why is Ripple doing that?
Well, you know, central banks are both regulators of their financial ecosystem, but also they operate the payment systems in their own countries. So when new technology like this comes along, they can be inhibitors of the use of that technology or really catalysts for innovation.
How else is Ripple engaging with central banks?
In my role at Ripple, I'm more interested in getting central banks to get their feet wet with DLT and with crypto assets. And that makes a big difference in the adoption of these technologies. Here, for example, Bahrain and Abu Dhabi Global Markets are leading the world in the development of regulatory frameworks for the use of crypto assets. And that's got to be a good thing for the ecosystem.
Yeah. And the other point to make is, we're talking about the pros and cons of real-time payments now, but the reality is in 5 years' time, all payments, certainly all mass payments, will be real-time, and anyone who doesn't offer it doesn't really have a business to be in.
Ripple was doing much better. So in other words, SWIFT, they have transaction of 15,000 every day, and they had 10,000 financial institutions part of it. And it was a mechanism that supported international business up until now. And SWIFT themselves recognize that they have reached their limits. The system that they have developed does not use blockchain. They're just using cloud funding and the real platform. So that is why they are leaning towards Corda. But what's important here is that SWIFT has given up on what they can do internally. They've done everything they can. We spent a lot of money on SWIFT. And if they can eliminate that, then the cost can be reduced significantly for the financial institutions. That's the era we're entering into. S-Coin platform. Niseko, Godaime, neighboring places where we go have our lunches are already using S-Coin. But maybe we can work together with the regional banks to create a regional currency. But it's DLT that's being used at the S-Coin, current S-Coin platform, but I'm thinking about transforming this to using R3 Corda. So, because you have to have a global standard. If you use Core Settler and with an XRP embedded in it, so that's good for Ripple, for Corda R3, this is good. It's a win-win for environment. And we are the largest shareholders of both. We are promoting XRP even at our exchange. So that's beneficial for all three parties.
Our goal with the Spring SDK and the goal with everything that we're doing here is how can we make it possible for the 23 million app developers that build for the Android store, that build for iOS, that build for Unity, how can we enable them to put money at the center of their applications? And so what we've done with the Spring SDK is made it possible for folks, regardless of their language, to be able to program against this XRP and ILP system. We believe XRP is the most important, most effective means to bridge between these boundaries that we see geographically and we certainly see from a monetary perspective. We think XRP will play a very important role in a federated, heterogeneous world that we know we all live in, and we just think it is the most important, effective tool to bridge between those things. And if we can just give those kinds of tools to developers, we're pretty excited what they're going to be able to build.
With a very short answer.
My name's Tom Lee. I was really struck by Brad's comments where he said the error rate on SWIFT was almost double digits. And, you know, when you think about financial systems and their responsibilities and, you know, the cost of these errors, because, right, it could create liquidity problems, how do these central banks grade cross-border systems now? Like, I was just curious. Could you tell us, do you like working with SWIFT, and is it state-of-the-art, or is it because it's backwards compatible to the Abacus?
So just one response, very short, sharp. Marcelo?
Well, I mean, you know, error rates in payments.
Like Swift,
They just want to go to the... shit.
We got a central bank disturbed.
We are always suspicious of these things. It's a kind of standard, right?
Yeah. But
I think we all share this standard. So the question is, if you want to replace Swift with something, you have to show us, the suspicious guys, what it's worth. How it's good, how it would be good for us or for everybody. But I think cross-border payments are an interesting thing to explore in DLT. I think it's a good thing to. We are looking how could it would be evolved.
Great. So unfortunately, I have wrapped that up there. We could have gone on.
What are some key milestones that have happened over the course of the year?
Yeah, 2018 was the year where RippleNet really came to life. So we built the network up to connect to 40 countries around the world. We went live with some of the largest banks and most creative payment companies, and we really started to bring the whole payment vision of Ripple to life, and that's a really, really big deal. We also defined the RippleNet community, which is, you know, a book of rules that our banks and payment companies work to when they're using Ripple. They can work together, discover new partners and new counterparties, and the network then starts to really build on its own. When you do that kind of thing, that's where you get tipping point, and that's where the flywheel starts to really turn. And we're seeing a great shift in how our customers are behaving in 2018 that tells me that flywheel's really started to kick in.
So Ripple doesn't directly serve a remitter or a small to medium enterprise, but our customers do. So what kind of things have they been able to do with RippleNet for those end users?
We work with their customers to make sure that they are really embedding the value out of Ripple when they're creating their app. So a good example is OnePayFX, which Santander developed with Ripple. And OnePayFX is being rolled out by Santander really worldwide. And Ripple is driving that solution. It's also helping Santander's retail customers get a really excellent payment experience when they are paying friends and family around the world.
Are other customers following Santander's lead in creating these applications and services for their direct customers?
What we are now doing with our customers worldwide is using that know-how and that learning to help them very quickly develop winning propositions for their own apps and their own internet banking services for their own customers. So for example, CIMB went live very recently with Ripple embedded in their SpeedSend product. Transfigure in the UK has implemented Ripple within their payment app. And what that's doing, it's creating a true global network of blockchain-powered payment capability. And that's starting to bring the internet of value to life.
What are your India-specific plans? You know, you're talking about remittances of almost $3 billion in the short term. India, of course, globally does see, one of the highest remittances. The World Bank has also noticed that trend, with migrants sending money back home. So having said that, $3 billion, by how much do you think you'll be able to touch that? What exactly is the India plan?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the beginning, I believe. For us, I think our aspirations globally are to be the leader in cross-border payments, and India is the single largest remittance market in the world. And so, with $80 billion, I believe, coming in 2019, $3 billion is just a small piece of that pie. So, we have huge aspirations for what we can do in the Indian market, and huge aspirations for how MoneyGram can scale and grow. We want to be the leader. EbixCash wants to be the leader. This is a strategic partnership, and we believe that there's not only opportunity here in India, but there's also opportunity for us to partner together outside of India as well to ensure that we have the best products and services and that we're able to service that Indian customer in the most robust way. I want to be the most known brand for consumers. Ebix Cash is the most known brand here in the country, and we want to make sure that we utilize both of those for the benefit of Indian customers and push financial inclusion and really help with the growth of the Indian economy.
Is there a possibility that Ripple could take over SWIFT one day?
Well, I think what we're doing and executing on a day-by-day basis is in fact taking over SWIFT. In that, we've now signed up, well over 100 banks. Some of the largest SWIFT-enabled banks in the world are now using Ripple's technology. Just last week we saw a remittance company who's using Ripple's technology. They reduced the price per transaction to their consumers from $20 per transaction to $2 per transaction, and they saw an 800% increase in usage overnight. That's the type of dynamic that SWIFT isn't able to support that we're able to address right now, and that's something we saw just in the last couple of weeks. So we certainly want to see banks succeed in this new world order, and take advantage of these technologies. To the extent we can work with SWIFT to do that, then that's great.
And so since we started the company last year, we've already made 100 billion payments. Now these are individual interledger packets, and it's kind of, you have to think of it like, the difference of going from a fax machine to the internet, where credit cards, you're making very few payments, relatively speaking. With something like Interledger, you're making a lot of payments even per user. And so it's literally orders of magnitude more payments that you can make because it's so efficient at sending very small payments, and because when you're trying to send a large amount of money, it actually might split it up into lots of small payments. So it really feels like there's an analogy here. Now, I'm not talking about Interledger itself today. I'm talking about web monetization. So web monetization is, as I said, a proposed web standard. And what it does is it essentially uses Interledger as infrastructure. So Interledger allows us to send these very small amounts of money very efficiently. And it creates a browser interface for it, which essentially allows a user. And of course, you may want to reward the user. And so what that means is if the user is paying in real time, you're getting money, and so you could say hey, I want to have a slightly different user experience for users that are actively supporting me. And why would you do that? Well, because that might encourage more users to sign up for web monetization. And also providers like Coil, we may pay more if we know that a certain site is giving benefits. So that's kind of our way of incentivizing web developers to say, hey, we want to give benefits for web monetized users. If you think this sort of through to the logical conclusion, you could imagine it as almost like an open source Amazon Prime that works on the whole web as opposed to just on Amazon-owned websites. So I get one subscription, I can choose from a variety of providers, and any of them give me the same feature, which is I can go to any website, I'm supporting the website, and the website's giving me a premium experience that might not involve ads, it might protect my privacy better because of that, and it's not going to ask me to pay or get on a subscription.
Over 100 clients, primarily financial institutions, companies like Western Union, MoneyGram, Bank of America, Bank of Tokyo, a lot of really big financial institutions, and we feel very lucky. Yeah.
I bet. But before this panel, too, we were talking about the story of Ripple and how you came to be. And what's really interesting is that you didn't arrive at this payments aspect right away. So can you share that story of how Ripple became a payments-focused company and relate that to kind of the journey of what a startup would go through trying to figure out their own use cases for blockchain?
Totally, yeah. So we did not start as a cross-border payments company. We actually started as a company called Ripple Labs. We were kind of figuring out what we were doing. Basically, what we started out with was a commitment to understanding this open source blockchain technology, this thing called XRP Ledger. I think where we started was really understanding what is this type of technology really going to be good at? What are kind of the critical, unique capabilities that this had? And then let's just figure out what you can do with it, and then what is the best thing to do with it. So I think we understood pretty early on that this type of technology, it's really good at transferring value and exchanging value. There are a lot of things that you can transfer, a lot of things that you can exchange. So we looked at things like the securities market, so think about like stocks and bonds. We looked at the commodities market, moving precious metals. We looked at loyalty points. We talked to a lot of loyalty points companies. We looked at domestic payments. So I think I had my first conversation with a central bank in early 2014, just a couple months after I joined. I was a little surprised to have that, but pretty cool. And what we concluded was that cross-border payments, which was one of the kind of strands of spaghetti that we threw against the wall and it stuck, it was really the use case where we believed there was a lot of friction, meaning we could make a really big impact. And it was also a use case where we could make a big impact in a relatively short amount of time. All of these possibilities were super interesting. I think they were all valid, but they just weren't as big and weren't as near term as cross-border payments. That's where we landed.
So let me first clarify what Ripple provides. Ripple doesn't provide liquidity. Ripple provides technologies that allow you to access liquidity that exists in the marketplace. In the last 24 hours, the digital asset marketplace traded about $50 billion of liquidity in 24 hours. That includes XRP, but that includes Bitcoin and Ether and what have you. So, could there be a run on digital assets at large? The nuance of the question is, Ripple sells technologies. Can there be a run on Ripple? I don't know what that looks like. I mean, I can't really think about that. Could there be a run on digital assets? I don't know. I mean, today, again, $50 billion of liquidity, and, people are moving liquidity around. For XRP, a settlement happens in 3 seconds. And so, to your point of taking 24 hours, I mean, 24 hours that's a positive story of a cross-border transaction. Many take longer. So taking a 3-second transaction and the risk associated with a 3-second transaction as compared to a day or 2 or 3, I think most people would say, hey, I feel better about taking 3 seconds of risk than a day or 2. So could there be a run on digital assets? Even that, I don't know exactly how to think about, because again, there's a lot of, I suppose at $50 billion a day in a nascent, I view it as a pretty nascent market today. People are getting liquidity that exists in the marketplace in local regions between XRP and the Philippine peso, XRP and the Argentine peso, XRP and the Brazilian real, and it's tapping into that liquidity that exists in the marketplace.
My name is Bhavin Vagela. I'm the head of product innovation at ZenPay and Rational FX. Rational FX and ZenPay are both part of the Rational Group. We're headquartered in Canary Wharf in London with a team size of over 100 people. Rational FX is predominantly around corporate payments and private individuals, maybe high net worth individuals buying property overseas and things. That was founded in 2005. In 2012, our founders realized the need for a cheaper, low-cost remittance model, which is where ZenPay was born from. So we are always trying to meet our growing customer demand to be able to serve their needs in local currencies in different countries all over the world. How do we do that? We need to find a partner that can introduce us to local banking institutions all over the world and have the infrastructure for us to be able to implement quickly, which allows us a quicker route to market. That's happened with Ripple. From the moment we started integration, it took us 4 weeks to turn the whole project around and process our first payment in a live environment. That immediately opened up 7 new currencies for us. So for our customers, we saw an immediate positive impact. Previously, historically, it's taken us around 3 to 4 days in order to process a payment into Thailand. Through our partnership through Ripple with Siam Commercial Bank, we are now able to leverage off their PromptPay local payment rail system, which has seen 90% of our payments being delivered in under 10 minutes. So some of the issues that our customers face have been around how quickly we can get their money across to their beneficiary, We've got to remember that these are migrant workers. They're not just choosing that they need to send money home here and there. They're sending money home for a particular reason and they need it there as quickly as possible. Not just about speed, but they also need the money there safely. They need to ensure that if they've sent £100, that the equivalent amount is going to be credited in that country without any charges getting deducted. We're able to provide that service. RippleNet has helped our business grow exponentially, and this is all whilst maintaining our founders' beliefs in making sure that money transfer should be fair, fast and safe all the time.
I would not, so I'm not a regulator. I will refrain from giving it a terminology. For me, it's a digital asset. It's decentralized, it's open source, anyone can use it for anything. Ripple, the company, uses it for a very specific use case, but you and I can go home and download the validator and use XRP for our own use case. Now, unfortunately, a lot of use cases today is speculative trading, but we hope that as the industry matures, as there is more real use cases of digital assets, and not just XRP, any other cryptocurrency, we will see more and more non-speculative use cases for those digital assets. I would call it a digital asset, and I think more and more regulators, so CPMI, BIS, Financial Stability Board, all these international regulators in the last year G20, Communic agreed that these tokens should be called digital assets and not called cryptocurrency, because these are not really currencies.
And incidentally, the management of Ripple said that they're going to go to market. They're going to list Ripple shares. I was wondering what's going to happen. So I'm watching what's going to happen. I'm a board member, but that kind of news doesn't come up. So I was wondering if Brad should talk about those kind of things, and I was thinking I wouldn't talk about that if it were me. But it's TBD, and he also was very cautious in the way he put it. And state-of-the-art technology has been introduced at the bank. And in Vietnam, we would like to make it a dominant player. So we had them partner with SBI Remit so that between Japan and Vietnam, they could offer remittance services utilizing RippleNet, the next generation payment platform of Ripple of the US. And last year, in November 2019, it started for the first time. It was the first in Vietnam. And this will bring down cost substantially, and this will be a point of differentiation. And we will be able to win even more with the power of technology, also in Cambodia. So, for various types of preparations, we are doing this as well. We will be including XRP as a benefit.
Now, SBI Remit and Ripple will be working with them. And in Vietnam, we would be doing something that is based on XRP. So in the beginning, we'll be using DLT in the initial phase. And we've already started this initiative. It is called the TB Bank. We have the 19.9% share. So we started out in this bank. So already SBI Remit is now number one in RippleNet in terms of SBI's remittance transaction volume. We have the dominant, overwhelming share in Vietnam.
And just to clear confusion that may have already started today, Ripple is a software company. Like, we develop software, we sell that to banks. We use crypto. The crypto, particularly XRP, one that we favor given its speed, efficiency, and low cost, is separate from our company and existed before our company started.
Some people like Brad Sherman are opposed. We know he'll be a no. And you have the debate on the floor. It's voted on and it passes overwhelmingly. Then you start pushing for a vote in the Senate. And then you got to get Stephen Mnuchin and Donald Trump to be supportive of it. And then they put it on there. So it's, you know, in-depth version of how a bill becomes law.
To build on that, actually, you know, at least from, you know, the outside perspective here, I mean, that's the inside baseball. I mean, how complicated it is really to get a piece of legislation through, no matter how big or small. I mean, it really does take all these moving pieces, and it's a joint effort. So, so in my new capacity here with Ripple, I'll be working more on the outside here, scheduling meetings with a lot of those influential folks on those powerful committees that the Congressman was just talking about. You know, Senate Banking, House Financial Services, And as you know, with a Democrat House and a Republican Senate, it's really vital to make sure that this maintains its nonpartisan or bipartisan support for this issue. And so, even in the 2 months I've been with Ripple, I've been meeting with a lot of folks from both sides of the aisle in both the House and the Senate. And the idea is shaping the narrative for hearings or whether it be for input on legislation. And so, at least within my new capacity, it's been really exciting to engage in those folks. And be really, really active and focusing solely on stuff like the Token Taxonomy Act, making sure we can get that legislation through in some form or fashion, whether it be, again, through the standalone, through an amendment, through, one form or another. And, before I came to Ripple, the best example of the outside groups really having an impact is with the Blockchain Association. In late July, there was a hearing in the Senate Banking Committee on crypto regulation as a whole, and they were able to, they being the Blockchain Association, Kristen Smith's been really good over there, they were able to get a witness actually on that panel, Jeremy Allaire, the CEO of Circle. And so that kind of shows like that government relations role, what exactly do we do on the outside here in DC? It's stuff like that, where we get folks on panels, at hearings, we shape the narratives for hearings as a whole, which eventually shape legislation and move legislation. And so it's been really exciting to kind of see that on a different side. But that inside baseball knowledge is really, really crucial to advance legislation. It's difficult.
Brad, my final question is, we've got so many of these cryptocurrencies starting, I've already asked you about that. A lot of them are going to fall by the wayside. No doubt you're going to still be there in a year's time. But how will this ecosystem look in a year from now?
That's a great question. I think the system is going to continue to evolve where years ago, really, crypto was solving a little bit of illicit, kind of Silk Road and illicit use cases. Then it moved to really a speculative bubble that we saw. And I think you're going to continue to see in 2019 and 2020 and beyond the focus on utility. How are these technologies, how are these digital assets solving real problems for real customers? And absent that real utility, I don't think you're going to see the whole market grow and live up to its potential. It's the reason why Ripple has been so focused on a specific customer, a specific problem, and we've been fortunate to build a lot of momentum with that customer set.
Brad, always good to have you with us. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse.
We work very closely with about 40, 50 central banks across the globe, including Bank of Thailand.
Actively engaged in with 50 governments around the world.
The Bank of England is a paid customer of Ripple. I called the CEO of MoneyGram 2 weeks ago. It's us to launch on-demand liquidity, formerly known as XRapid, in more markets more quickly because they're having such a good experience. Incredibly pleased by the engagement we've had, ranging from the IMF to, central banks.
10 years out on the financial crisis, we still don't have the infrastructure perhaps to prevent the next one. And I think this is where digital assets can really help. With a really efficient digital asset, something like XRP, again, that's what we believe will be the most efficient.
What is Interledger's total addressable market size? It's all the money.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for banks to adopt XRP? We don't see a major challenge in adoption, to be honest. In terms of adoption, it's really about using the banks which were shown in the earlier slide to create the initial network. Once we scale and the banks we're working with together would allow around a 90% coverage of the world's global networks. So we're having some great dialogue with banks around the world about using XRP.
See IMF holding crypto assets in the future. I did not put that up there.
Remember, I'm from the legal department. I'm supposed to be very conservative about these things. Current legal framework, some country would have to use a crypto asset as its currency.
The Codius platform would allow creating financial derivative products.
The largest global money center banks on the planet, and I was talking about our primary products, fiat to fiat, called XCurrent. And this guy kind of interrupts me. He's like, yeah, that's nice, but I have a problem settling into Peru. Can I use XRP to help me settle into Peru?
Merge R3 and Ripple. Make sure that XRP is practically used.
The Middle East to South Asia corridor, we are already mainstream, right? So if you look at the top 4 banks in Saudi, they are our customers. You look at top 4 banks in Kuwait, they are our customers. Number of institutions like UAE, Extract Bank in the UAE are our customers, right? They're only all mainstream. We believe that we are at that tipping point, right?
We're actually seeing quite a few banks look at blockchain solutions for international remittances. My own bank, Siam Commercial Bank, has been working with Ripple for the past few years on international remittances. Several of the banks, including our own, as well as a number of our peer banks, have been looking at trade finance, so letters of guarantee, looking at letters of credit on blockchain. We're looking at some digital identity use cases. Siam Commercial Bank just recently formed a collaboration with a number of universities to put university transcripts and records on the blockchain.
I do want to showcase something a little bit, a different type of demo. This is a video. It's regarding a product that is called RippleNet Home. For our financial institutions who work with us, they interact with Ripple through a customer portal. And as we imagine what the future generations of this portal will allow our customers to do, it includes things as automated connections to new partners in a matter of minutes as opposed to days, business insights, insights on your payment flows across the world, pricing comparisons. So what you're about to see, it's a 2 or 3 minute video. It's a glimpse into the future of what RippleNet Home, your experience, essentially how you interact with RippleNet as a customer of ours, can look like. We do want to get feedback, so you're going to see an email address at the end of the video. It's ux@ripple.com. If you have feedback because you're a current customer or a prospect and you have ideas or would like to meet with us one-on-one to learn a little bit more, please feel free to reach out. But for now, let me introduce the future of RippleNet Home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the future of RippleNet Home. Imagine an entirely new experience where you can get insights about your company's payment flows and performance in real time, as well as intelligent suggestions for how you can grow your market share and increase your competitive advantage in different parts of the globe. As you explore and interact with the network, growth opportunities for your company get surfaced. To improve your capabilities in an existing corridor or expand into a new one. Evaluate the size and potential of a market and immediately find the partner that best fits your business goals. Get to know your potential partner, their capabilities, and perform the necessary due diligence, all within RippleNet Home. Then send a request to get connected instantly. Receive new opportunities to connect with RippleNet members that can offer you low rates and instant settlement with on-demand liquidity. Manage and respond to all of your inbound requests in one central place from wherever you are. And watch as your network and your reach continue to grow. Track all of your payments on RippleNet with smart automation that reduces errors. And analyze your transaction history to understand how you can fully optimize global payments at your company. This is just a glimpse of what's in store for RippleNet Home. What else can you help us imagine?
Depending on the jurisdiction around the world, regulators have different views on how to use digital assets. For example, in an extreme, you look at China or India, and they're not friendly towards digital assets. Other markets have more sort of progressive stances. And so we've been cautious to launch in markets where we can ensure that our customers are comfortable that there's regulatory clarity, they don't need to worry about anything. So we launched Mexico last year. We launched Philippines after that. Yesterday on stage, we announced that Australia was coming online. And there's a list of countries that are on the roadmap, Thailand being one for 2020. So we're not, and therefore before we launch it, we, with our partners, we talk to the regulators, we want to make sure, we talk to the exchanges, we want to make sure everything is clear, there's clarity so that we don't put anybody in an awkward position.
Right.
foreign exchange. With Ripple, with our software, and it's already live between US dollar to Mexico corridor, it'll move between AED to XRP and XRP to Kenyan shilling, and with which the loss will be quite minimal, and with which we can certainly say that the cost of remittance will go down, because it's far more efficient way of transferring money, because there is no nostro accounts that are required. As you know, there is about $5 to $10 trillion of capital that banks keep with their counterparty banks in the destination country to make these transfers possible. So that's the big liquidity cost that we eliminate. The second thing that we eliminate is the cost of errors. As you know, the infrastructure or the plumbing for the international payments was built 50, 60 years ago. It still runs on, you can call it telex technology, right? Whereas the new infrastructure for the internet world, it requires an API-based software system, which Ripple pioneers. And a combination of both these things put together should bring the cost of remittances down, which has stubbornly been at a 7% range. Can you imagine all of us earning in the room, and most of us are could be foreigners to UAE, lose 7% of our income just because we are transferring money from one place to another? I mean, to my mind, it's unacceptable.
Ripple has come to the market with 3 products, and I will just briefly touch on them. The first one is called XCurrent, and the reason why I'll point this out is because XCurrent doesn't touch crypto. XCurrent is just, kind of Swift 2.0. It's a messaging framework that is much more efficient and real-time as compared to, fiat to fiat. That typically is how we start working with any bank or any financial institution, is on a fiat to fiat basis. The bottom product we see down here is called XRapid, and XRapid is really where we use XRP to fund real-time liquidity. We brought this product to market in Q4 of last year, and immediately we saw the demand for that type of product from banks, financial institutions who want to open up new corridors for payments, but don't want to open up new nostro-vostro relationships and the friction and overhead that goes with that. The third product is really simply an API that allows corporates to do real-time payouts into this network we call RippleNet. The challenge here, as many of you may know, is there's corporations ranging from Uber to Amazon to less technically efficient companies. They employ hundreds of engineers that just integrate into payment networks around the world. They're building custom APIs into payment networks in the Philippines or Indonesia, into the Middle East, what have you, so they can enable those payouts. We think by standardizing on an open source API, we can make that more efficient for everyone.
We ran a trial last year of 12 banks that did not have accounts with each other, but wanted to make cross-border payments, where they used XRP as a means to source fiat currency. So they were using XRP to source liquidity and test its use case. In that trial, we found that it was quite successful in getting immediate access to liquidity and having significant capital savings for these institutions. We're moving now to production of this type of solution. We're partnering with several exchanges in different countries to list XRP, to quote it between the local currency. So there's a healthy liquidity ecosystem of many exchanges providing liquidity into and out of XRP, enabling a source for banks to turn to source XRP and enable it for cross-border liquidity. So we see this as our network expands, becoming a crucial part in scaling liquidity. We should note all the payments remain in fiat currency, so it's still government currency, and this is an optional tool. We don't require it for use of the network. The bank can use Ripple without ever engaging with XRP if they don't have an interest in that. So it's a preview of how we're looking at solving liquidity in our system. It's an optional tool that we do expect to see a great adoption for over the coming years. So that concludes the presentation today.
Is that we did a lot of research in terms of what was broken with the financial system and the payment system, and we went out and visited with Uber and Airbnb and Google and the others. And what I realized is that these firms, we think of them as tech firms, but a large part of what they do and the value they provide are payments. And I went to Uber and they have 200 people working specifically on payments, and that's because the current system doesn't work for them. So they rebuilt a payment system using 200 people all around the world. Amazon, for example, has 206 different payment connections to facilitate merchant payouts for their platform. And so, they're pushing innovation. And I don't think that they should be in the payment business. I think that they should use, other technologies instead of, and focusing on what they're really good at. And so, their role right now has been to push innovation, and I think that's a good thing. But in the future, we're hoping that there's other solutions like the ones Ripple provides so that they don't have to get in that business themselves. What we're seeing is this trend, especially in Asia and Latin America, of folks moving from cash to digital. And those are really hot markets for Ripple. We're signing up tons of customers there. But I think we're doing it in conjunction with the most innovative banks. And so I think that, in Silicon Valley, there's this thing that banks are going to be dead. We disagree. We think that especially in emerging markets, some of the banks out there are moving faster than a lot of fintechs. And so we're building a new payment network built on blockchain, but we're bringing together the most innovative financial institutions around the world to make that happen. To that, as it relates to blockchain, Southeast Asia has taken a leadership position from a regulatory perspective in regulating blockchain. And, the PayPal of Thailand, for example, offers cryptocurrencies in its wallet. You can use cryptocurrencies for remittances in those countries, and it's dropped the cost of remittances. And so you're seeing them use regulation as a platform for innovation.
Having thoughtful regulation and working with governments. We announced the fact that we're working with the Bank of England as an example. We announced some things we've done with the US Fed and their Faster Payments Task Force. We're going to keep working with the system because I think the early days of Bitcoin were all about down with government and down with banks. Ripple has been, look, governments aren't going away, banks aren't going away. Let's work with the system to dramatically improve the way and reduce the friction for how money moves globally.
So with Interledger, again, open standard, connects different types of networks. It's use case agnostic, and it's about doing packetized money. So some people have heard me say this before, but I'll throw it out to the audience. What is Interledger's total addressable market size? All the money. Nobody wanted to feed it. Yeah, it's all the money, because what we're really talking about with this idea of the Internet of Value is creating a single global payment network that connects literally everyone.
Yeah, and what was interesting, Bitso, as you guys know, one of our exchange partners in Mexico, they moved $18 million of remittance through XRP in the final weeks of December, and that's been growing at 15 to 20% per week. For MoneyGram, they're now live in 5 corridors using on-demand liquidity. And now 10% of their US to Mexico, which is their largest corridor, is moving over XRP and ODL.
Answer, which is also true, is XRP is a fantastic currency to use for, among other things, hedge funds. We need to move a lot of money very quickly. We make investments all over the world. Our LPs come from all over the world. And using banks to move money is a pain in the ass. I mean, it takes a day or two to move money around the world. And with XRP, our very first close was 50 million. We moved that money in, and I'm not shitting you, in like 3 seconds, and I think it cost 20 or 30 cents. You really need to think about that.
But that's...
And so it's fantastic to use it for that.
You're moving it using the Ripple protocol, but the problem is that...
He used the XRP ledger to do that.
He's using you're using the XRP ledger, but there's an issue here.
I didn't do anything. Somebody else did it. But I just know that the money moved in like that. Like literally, like that, and it costs nothing. And have you ever sent money in an international wire? I mean,
Yes.
It's a pain in the ass. And then you got to call, and did you get it? And what? No, I didn't get. And it's truly revolutionary.
Well, I mean, you can use, there's lots of startups, TransferWise, etc., that will do that kind of thing. But obviously, there are charges, and obviously larger amounts.
You can't PayPal
Can I interject
$50 million.
there? I think TransferWise is a fabulous company, and they've done some very clever things by hacking the existing system. What TransferWise does is optimize the existing infrastructure and, in effect, hack the system so that you have a better outcome. What Ripple is trying to do is say, look, can we reset the rail? TransferWise loves what we're doing because if we're successful, it makes their job actually easier. There's a lot of companies that spend a lot of time and energy, and TransferWise and Currency Cloud are examples, that are taking the existing system and saying, how can I put accounts all over the place, and I'm going to have my own, effectively, ledger within TransferWise to debit and credit so I can make funds available more quickly than otherwise would be the case.
But one of the
In the audience, who owns or has owned XRP? Okay, that's great. Who despises XRP and thinks Chris is the devil? No one. So things are getting, oh, we have one. So things are getting better. Right? I don't know where I was going with that, but I just wanted to see if anyone thought you were evil.
I
want
to. I think what it means, though, is obviously the U.S. regulators have got to step up. I think they're doing a pretty good job, but we haven't. Wait. Got to give credit. It's hard.
Okay, so
it's hard work.
Let's take the statement of we think the U.S. regulators are doing a pretty good job. Let's wrap that up and let's put that over here for one moment, right? Let's continue with China, but I want to just come back to that.
This is being recorded, you know, so they are going to see all that. So,
because they're bastards. I mean, they really. I think we have a difference of opinion on the U.S. regulatory ability and willingness to do a good job. But back to China, yeah.
Well, at the same time, though, U.S. leads, you know, I have to say, they have led in the whole internet revolution.
Internet revolution, which was awesome because they didn't mess it up. We
could have gone either way, though. There was a critical moment in '97.
Yeah. But you would agree that the SEC is the single greatest evil in stopping the U.S. from being competitive in crypto. You would say that, right?
I'm going to take back your socks.
Let's put this back over there. I know you can't say things that I can say but I know how you really feel about that. But the Trump gets
this is his own. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to go too deep into this.
I did not say that. So
actually, I'm going to put the Trump one back over there. We're not going to talk about that.
But you have to admit, though, this is the best fintech environment we've ever had.
So you're a big Trump supporter.
What I support is not too much regulation, right? Otherwise, sometimes you try to go after the big banks. The big banks are fine; they get a ton of money, a ton of lawyers, and you end up crushing all the entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I appreciate your time. I think what we agreed on is that the SEC is evil, and I don't know. I think the other thing was that everybody is crazy in this industry, right? Except that's it. No.
I think it's time to go.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you.
We're pushing almost today about 10% of our volume that we normally do to Mexico through the ODL platform. It's working extremely well. We've now opened into 4 new corridors that we're beginning to scale, and I think that those will continue to ramp in the coming weeks and months. And you know, at the end of the day, pairing off our transaction flows with the currency flows really gives a lot of efficiency and scale to what we do.
So that's where we get to the digital asset. In our case, is XRP, which is our native digital asset. Is that rather than sending money in advance, the moment that you need this money, you go and on demand request for this liquidity. So basically, you use the digital asset, and in this case, XRP, as a bridge currency between 2 fiat currencies. So you're not changing the board. You're not replacing currencies today. This world will continue for a few years. I don't think that we can plug blockchain and change the world dramatically. So the disruption will happen progressively. I can give you a case. So for instance, you are a payment service provider. You want to send $100 to Mexico. So you go to the crypto exchange, you have your $100, you convert that to XRP, and immediately after, you convert back to the Mexican peso, and then you onward deliver to the local market. This is changing completely the way that the banking today is happening. This world is very fragmented. And as I mentioned, blockchain is not a network of the network yet. It's adding another complexity to the existing world of the payments. So you have the network of the banks, you have the blockchain, then you have mobile money, online wallets. Can you imagine in what a fragmented world we are living? And if we don't think about what we have learned from the history of the payments, we will continue to add complexity to this world. Is there any other way of doing it? And I think that's where the next generation of the blockchain technology is leading actually to a protocol that is called Interledger Protocol, which is connecting any kind of the networks to other networks. So is a disruption that a shipping container did in order to create interoperability between the ship, train, and the trucks. So is that how we can enable the world to freely transact values by using the proper protocol layer, which is the interledger.
We think of liquidity also in terms of where it is. And because our software solution is really about moving money from one place to the next, and we're trying to solve around this problem that you can send a text message in 3 seconds or an email in 3 seconds, but it takes you 6 days to send $10,000 from here to Mexico City. So we need liquidity of XRP, in the case of Ripple, both in the US and in Mexico. Well, that's not a real problem. South Korea is great. But what's going to happen when we're dealing with Switzerland? What's going to happen when we're dealing with, Moscow's pretty good too, but we're really thinking about sort of pairs of currencies, and we need liquidity in all the markets in which we're transacting. So to have global liquidity to go from dollars into whatever coin isn't so important to us as to have liquidity from whatever the fiat currency is in that place to XRP. And we're working to build that both through our sales of XRP and to help develop and help. We really look at the market makers as partners. We really want them to be very active in a lot of places so that all of our banks that are using our software can access liquidity through those different market makers in all those different countries. We have a lot of financial interest coming to this where people want to invest in it. Institutionally, I feel like the institutions are just waiting with their faces in the window trying to get into this thing and waiting for some of these important issues around custody. I think there are important accounting issues as well in terms of banks and the way that they count the assets that they hold in their books. Capital requirements are so important to banks, some more than others. If this doesn't get counted as capital because their accountants because GAAP accounting doesn't yet allow for that, that's also, I think, a hindrance to this industry. But I think that those things do get solved sooner rather. When are there more futures contracts beyond Bitcoin, right? When does it expand to Ether? When does it expand to XRP and Litecoin? Those most traded assets. And I think that's going to start to create lots of potential financial markets that go well beyond being long or being short or being long the future or short the future, puts or calls, whatever you want to think about it. I mean, that's going to enable products such as lending products, right? Banks sell off their risk by being, by essentially being short something or long something over the long term with contracts going out with currencies right now. They can't do that with crypto, but they will be, once they're able to do that with different types of crypto, then there'll be different kinds of lending products out there because they're able to hedge off that risk.
I would have gone with a different argument. Anyway. Because, what does centralization really mean? I mean, if we're talking about the most decentralized cryptocurrency, the most censorship resistant, the best in every way, we're talking about Ripple and XRP, right? I mean, and I'm an unbiased, and I'm not a special pleader for Ripple or XRP, but, and we do have a slight conflict of interest there, but okay. So look, I mean, XRP is awesome. I mean, it just really is fantastic, and I just can't go on enough about it. But see, I think that if I had to pick a investment that we made that isn't XRP, which is awesome, I would actually choose Arweave, which in our prep call was brought up by I think Danny, did you bring it up? Yeah, but Arweave is a company that we invested in that is storage of file storage on the blockchain. And one of the cool things about it, again, I'm just basically stealing Danny's words from our prep call, but is that when you're running a node with Arweave, you actually get to choose whether you want to store certain kinds of content. And that ability, I think, makes it pretty special and interesting. And I think we're going to make a lot of money on that investment. And so XRP, Arweave are two of the ones that I'm really sort of a fan of when it comes to decentralization. So. Yeah. Who's with me on XRP though? I mean, seriously. Everybody hates XRP.
No, that's crazy.
System which is called correspondent banking. And correspondent banking is a very complex process and creates lots of costs. Most of these costs are related to the management of the liquidity. And this means billions or trillions of money trapped in the accounts in order to move funds globally. And I think the way that we see the use case of the crypto asset, in this case XRP, which is a product which is live, is around how you can source on-demand liquidity. This has a big influence, especially for not necessarily big banks, because they have obviously a different range of capital, but smaller institutions that they pay a lot for maintaining capital in the destination account, in the nostro-vostro relationship, as we call it. They have really they are struggling actually with these costs, especially with the regulatory requirements So clearly, the use case that we see is rather than maintaining even accounts or funds in the destination currency, how you can use the crypto assets, in this case XRP, to source on-demand liquidity when you need it and at a cheaper price. And this, the product went live actually end of last year. We do have 10 financial institutions that actively are using that, and the volume is increasingly actually coming every day.
So that's where we are. So it's, you know, we started 2 years ago in terms of transacting, and we're steadily growing. In fact, growing strongly.
We're glad to hear that the focus on remittances continues. And sort of looking at that, I mean, Ripple recently made an announcement in MoneyGram of up to $50 million, which took us all by surprise. Any sort of insight into that? I'm sure there are people here that would love for you to invest in their companies too. So.
Well, sure. It's not the area of business that I work in. But in terms of, you know, the reason why we invest in MoneyGram, I mean, we believe that we can take a lot of friction out of MoneyGram's payment flows, and we can help grow their business using, in particular, our on-demand liquidity product. You know, MoneyGram is a well-established global remittance company. It's embracing innovation. And it's exactly the type of customer we want to have on on the RippleNet network. So that's why we invested.
You send and you keep liquidity. Is that how you can source on demand liquidity by using digital assets? So what we have been doing, and this product is live now, just to make clear, no banking institution is using that because, as you probably heard about it, the regulatory framework around the usage of digital assets is not very clear for banks. But payment service provider and some other financial institutions are less governed by these obligations. So what we have been doing actually is that using actually the real currency, let's imagine that you are in US, you have $100 and you want to send that to a user or someone in Mexico, okay? So you go to the crypto exchange, you exchange the $100 to the XRP in this case, and immediately after, the XRP is converted back to Mexican peso, and it is delivered either to the local rails or to the financial institutions that has an account with the crypto exchange. So this is actually changing the way that the current liquidity is managed. So you only use the liquidity when you need it. And when you don't need it, you don't use it. But you don't trap the liquidity into the destination country. So this product, I think, is somehow the ultimate way of the way that we see that the crypto assets or digital assets can help in the build of the global economy by using the costs associated to the liquidity management.
But this inner networking of payments with banks and blockchain and mobile money and all online wallets can work when it's all stitched together. What's the way to stitch it together? The Interledger protocol. So another thing that we use is an open source protocol called the Interledger protocol, and it connects all these different ledgers. It's an important part. So the ILP is an open protocol. There's lots of individuals, a community group working on this Interledger protocol to build this global network. There are over 275 contributors to it, from banks, central banks such as the Bank of England working on this, Saudi Bank working on this, payment companies, big tech companies working on this such as Google, consulting companies, blockchain companies, and Ripple's right in the thick of using this Interledger protocol with our software and using XRP to move money across borders, move value across borders. If you think about what happened in the world of the internet, when the internet was developed, there were all of these different technologies, HTTP, TCP, IP networks, Wi-Fi, but the way to connect this all together so importantly was IP, right? And so when we look at value, we look at the Interledger protocol as a way to connect all these different networks from the application level through the transport level, and then all the way down to the banks and the blockchains and the mobile money, to stitch this all together and move this through an open source protocol around the world, and ILP does that. So for us, this is all about creating an internet of value. We had an internet of data. It has changed the world, but it is missing that crucial component of moving value. So with the Interledger protocol and with Ripple software and using XRP, we've created an internet of value that we've got already 100 customers rolled out in this. We're adding more customers every week And we think this is really going to create this internet of value that's really going to change the world and finally give us globalization in every way with our stuff, with our data, and yes, with our money. Thank you very much.
I also think on the enterprise side, there are just so many frictions associated with global payments. I used to work in corporate treasury at ExxonMobil, and it was just mind-boggling to see the amount of money that was being sent between the parent company and all of its affiliates all around the world. It's extremely inefficient to move money around our world today, to move value around our world today, and there's a real business driver there. If you can shave some cost out of those transactions within an organization, that can start to become a very material cost savings over time. But it can also enable very new business models where all of a sudden you don't need to have all this working capital sitting in bank accounts in different places in the world. So I see Ripple actually making a lot of very exciting progress with the member banks they're working with, but also just starting to really promote the use of XRP as a truly global borderless value transfer mechanism. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, that sort of came out of nowhere.
It did,
yeah.
But it didn't at the same time. I think because we're investors in Ripple and having met the team there and knowing what they were working on, it was not surprising. I think the shift back to XRP has actually been a really material part of that change. They're now starting to build an ecosystem. Again, this is all about networks. They're starting to now create a network around XRP. There's a lot more people who are interested in it, looking at it. And so once that network, that ecosystem develops, you could very well see an entire wave of companies get created that are building on top of Ripple.
We have done a cross-border inward remittance platform tie-up with Ripple, which is a blockchain platform. A couple of large banks are already tied up with us and they're putting in transactions daily through this platform. I'll talk a little bit as we go along, but it clearly has a lot of benefits on the blockchain side. So we are trying to see what other use cases can be added onto that and how it can make our customer experience a lot better. But if you see the fundamental of the blockchain technology, at least from a cross-border point of view, these kind of issues like transparency, where is my payment, what is the status of my payment, what is the charge that they recovered for my payment, when will I get it settled, can I get it done in a matter of minutes, are actually the key tenets of the blockchain technology. I mean, to take an example, when we launched blockchain, it was not to necessarily integrate with a worldwide set of banks. Of course, Ripple, by virtue of the fact that it was the provider of the blockchain network, helped us connect to banks globally. That I do agree, right? Now, the advantage that we've done is we've built on top of that platform. This is the difference, actually. So we have got the key point to note here is when you pass a cross-border and you're in a different time zone from India, and let's accept for the moment that India is one of the big destination countries, the first and foremost thing which bothers them is liquidity management, right? And that's a risk for them because there are costs of capital pertaining to liquidity. So what we are trying to solve for the banks which are remitting for us and therefore their customers is to give them visibility into their liquidity position, no matter what time of the day or night it is. Again, it is built on the back of the blockchain distributed ledger protocol. So that's something which I think is a great experience and transparency enabler, which we've seen actually. The second is, now coming to Sameer's point, that we've actually seen customers choosing types of payments when they are cross-border. I mean, I might want to do an RTGS, I might want to do an IMPS. That choice also we are giving to customers. So today, it is possible for us to settle transactions in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, which was earlier not possible, right? And these benefits have been passed to the customer.
Ripple built a different algorithm called the consensus algorithm. Transaction speeds are 4 seconds. It's actually 3.8 seconds if you look on the ledger right now. And you can do 1,500 transactions per second. So what makes Ripple interesting, if you look at that and why this is such a unique product, it can act as a two-party model for direct payments or peer-to-peer payments, a closed-loop 3-party model, and a 4-party model all in one. This is why it's very difficult for people to actually understand what Ripple really is. The Ripple ecosystem comprises of XRP, which is the cryptocurrency, the native cryptocurrency. It's there to help the system with attacks and also fuel the system. The Xcurrent, which is the banking API products, and Xrapid, which is a really interesting product, a relatively new product of Ripple, which really, if you think about it, if you were a money sender and you were operating in 5 different countries, and you had to have 5 different of those currencies in your bank balances in order to create all these transactions, you can take wipe away all that and replace that with only one currency, which is your native currency. And with XRapid, you can go in and out of this currency really quickly and then settle with the other currencies. This is why this is such a good product. Then, of course, you've got your Ripple gateways. Zago is one, where we can issue rands onto the ledger and then act as a decentralized exchange. And then you've got your centralized exchanges like Altcoin Trader, where you can put money in and buy XRP. So let's get to the custodians of the future. How do they look like? In my opinion, or our opinion, a bank like Revolut is really paving the way for digital banks, branches, and integrated with cryptocurrencies. We also think like Altcoin Trader or Luno and these cryptocurrency exchanges will also be part of the ecosystem in the future.
We're just at the beginning of another wave of globalization. But this wave may be less centralized, less rules of the game up there, and much more decentralized. Regulators will still need to be comfortable, but the decentralized aspect of it is also important because trust in global institutions is breaking down.
About the future of cryptocurrencies, where do you see the future of these digital assets and maybe the role of Bitcoin and Ripple or XRP in that future?
Yeah, so our view is that these digital assets really become supplemental to the existing family of currencies, right? So every country still needs its own, fiat currency for all kinds of reasons that I won't get into. It's very complicated, right? And I actually think that the big four, the yen, the euro, the dollar, the RMB, they actually, I think, come stronger in this world that we're going into, partially because of digital assets.
Okay.
That these digital assets actually contribute to a world that's more interoperable, where more people around the globe can get access to these big four. And most of global commerce is done in the big four. So I think you have a bifurcation going on. Those big four get stronger. I think some of the smaller currencies, maybe even more of the very small fiat currencies, become less relevant, maybe even disappear. A country could have its own fiat, but still use one of the big four. You have lots of
like
examples.
Montenegro, right?
Absolutely. But I think then where the digital assets fit in, like things like XRP and Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're kind of in that mid-range. They become, I think, like the Singapore dollar or the Swiss franc, and they become useful in kind of lubricating the world to make it easier for those big four to get in the hands of people all around the world. So that's useful. And then it might also be things like applications and devices that maybe primarily use one of those digital assets. So that's kind of the view we have. So I think in that world, countries should be less threatened by what's going on and see them as simply supplemental rather than a threat. Too much talk about it being a threat. Our industry has done a bad job in too much bravado and chest pounding. It's just kind of silly.
आजकल जो पेमेंट्स हैं वो दे आर ऑल टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड और उसके अंदर स्पीड और कन्वीनियंस जो है वो सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है। तो हम वी आर प्राउड ऑफ आवर रिलेशनशिप विद रिपल और इसके ज़रिए से ना सिर्फ हम रेमिटेंस वॉल्यूम जो इस वक्त हुकूमत की भी एक तरजीह है, स्टेट बैंक की भी तरजीह है, उसको इंक्रीज़ कर सकेंगे, बल्कि हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा वॉल्यूम जो है वो थ्रू ऑफिशियल चैनल्स और कस्टमर कन्वीनियंस और एक टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड सॉल्यूशंस के साथ हम इस सारी चीज़ को इंट्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं। सो इसका एडवांटेज एंड ऑफ द डे जो है मुल्क को भी होगा और कस्टमर्स को भी होगा, क्योंकि वो एक बहुत ही स्पीडी तरीके से रेमिटेंसेस उनके अकाउंट्स में पहुंच जाएं।
David, tell me a little bit more about XRP. Make the case for it, because there are a bunch of different cryptocurrencies out there. Bitcoin kind of is decentralized. You don't want a centralized bank involved. Ethereum allows you to program decentralized applications. Make the case for XRP. What is its benefit and purpose?
Well, I would say there's kind of two aspects to that. So one of them is like, what is Ripple doing with XRP? And the other one is like, what is everybody else in the world doing with XRP? From Ripple's point of view, XRP has the properties to be a sort of intermediary or a settlement asset because it's fast, and it's cheap to move. So what I mean by a settlement asset is when you pulled out that 50-pound note, and we pointed out like you can't move the 50-pound note to Mars in 50 milliseconds. XRP you can move around the world in just a couple of seconds. It's much faster than Bitcoin or Ethereum.
You would need a very fast rocket ship to get there in that time.
So one example of a use case that Qualix is using right now is remittances between the United States and Mexico. So rather than having to move that money the conventional way, which takes several days and is very expensive, they just buy XRP at the moment they need it, and a few seconds later they sell that XRP for Mexican pesos. So what you have is you have a remittance pipeline that sources the liquidity on demand, and you're not exposed to the volatility of cryptocurrencies because XRP is so fast you hold it for a minute or two. That's less volatility than the peso over 2 or 3 days. And it's 40 to 60% cheaper. So we're pursuing those kind of intermediate, like if we're going to have hundreds of thousands of assets, we can't have millions of asset pairs with deep liquidity. Like you can't take any one of those 100,000 assets and have lots of liquidity to every single other one of those 100,000 assets. There's just too many of them. So our strategy is to position XRP as sort of the intermediary asset, the sort of the liquidity source. As far as what other people are doing, the XRP ledger has very low fees, very high throughput, and very high speeds. And it also has a decentralized exchange built in, so it can host other assets. So other people are experimenting with things like micropayments use cases, like eliminating advertisements where you pay for content instead, those kinds of things.
Yes, I think pay works. I think the disruption is happening, and I think the impact of obviously with blockchain, etc., will be disruptive, and I don't think it will be a continuous thing at all. And there is a concept of tipping point, and the funny thing about a tipping point is it's obvious it's happened only after it's happened. So looking back, you can say, okay, at that point in time, things kind of changed. But if you live through the change, in many cases, you're not aware that the world is changing around you. So blockchain, for example, Ripple, we already have cross-border blockchain traffic running in production for customers around the world, moving millions of dollars. It's happening. That's one example. And I think in this disruptive world, it's not just the edges of the banking world which are being challenged. I mean, the whole dot-com revolution rather, was around changing the surface of banking, moving from branches to internet banking or to apps. This time, the technology is going right into the middle. It's changing how our customers think. To your point, the predictions are that by 2020, there'll be around 50 billion devices connected to the internet without any people being involved, and they'll start to bank and transact with each other. But also, within the organization itself, actually challenging what makes up a bank, what you do when you bank, how much goes into the structure that we see today as a bank versus an Alipay, an Alibaba, etc. So I think the disruption will come because the technology is attacking every piece of the value chain. And the difficult point is that by the time it's obvious what's happening, it will have happened.
Luckily, our system puts the customer back in control by encrypting payment details on the blockchain for just 6 seconds before our partner abroad receives the call and pays out cash. This way, we settle every payment in real time, every time. Instead of buying big batches of foreign currency, which is risky and capital intensive, we settle payments one by one on the blockchain, which is secure and cheap. Money lands in your mobile wallet, in your bank account, or is available for pickup in cash. And through an agreement with our partner Ripple, who, by the way, gave us $1 million to support marketing expenses, we're guaranteed the very best interbank foreign exchange rates, which other payment businesses just don't get. All of these improvements to our model allow us to charge just 2.5% to process payments instantly. Because we know that in the future, it will be as cheap and as secure to send money internationally as it is to use Venmo or PayPal today. Our product saves customers hundreds of dollars a year on things that matter, like electricity and tuition and medical bills. They shouldn't have to overpay. And the 1,000 people on our wait list agree. And while we're focused on consumers now, having the system built allows us to achieve so much more in the future, like launch an API for bank payments or for corporate payments. And our team has deep experience and conviction around our mission. Our CTO, Joel, has built payments tech for over 13 years, including as the chief architect at MoneyGram. And our CRO, David, is a revenue machine with over 5 years of experience in B2B and consumer startups. To date, we've raised over $1.5 million of support for our venture, and we are so excited to share our product with you and the world in 2019, because we are ready to be the first remittance company on the planet that actually puts its customers first. Thank you.
Gottfried, I'm going to give you one more question because you'll be stepping down in June. So can you talk a little bit about your outlook for Swift once you're gone? What do you expect will be a bit of your legacy, and then what's your hope going forward?
Yeah, legacies are always a dangerous thing. I think for me, GPI is a big part of the legacy. I think it is transformational for correspondent banking. It really is the biggest change, at least in the 40 years that Swift has been, 45 years that Swift has been in existence, taking that to the next century. And under the hood, changing the whole technology stack from what it was 20, 30 years ago, mainframe, etc., towards cloud, APIs, containerization, all of that stuff. That will be a journey, again, because of the 10,000 banks. Changing our own technology is relatively easy. Getting all of the 10,000 banks to embrace it and make it interconnected will be a longer journey. I think that will really be, in my mind, a big part of the legacy, turning not just Swift, but the banking community as a whole, the transaction banking community, and bringing them into the next century with all of the technologies that we now have available. So that will be my legacy. In terms of what I'm going to do, I don't think it's very different from what was in the press. I'm going to take a few months to chill out. I'm passionate about payments. I always have been. Before I joined Swift, I was a consultant with McKinsey in the area of payments. So I envision what's called a portfolio life, which will be a combination of payments, fintech, research. I did some academia in between as well, so it will be a combination of that. But who knows?
Ripple is hiring.
The offer stands. I think we'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, Gottfried. Because I think there's two important things about this, and Gottfried mentioned this earlier. Swift today is a one-way messaging framework. It actually isn't a liquidity provider, right? It's Swift messaging partnered with bank liquidity. When we think about an Internet of Value, it's a mixture of two-way messaging frameworks, moving to real-time, a chatty protocol, if you will, coupled with real-time liquidity. And I hear people talk about volatility, and I feel like they're propagating misinformation. The volatility risk of fiat, volatility is just a mathematical calculation of time times volatility. If you hold fiat for, let's say, an average Swift transaction today is in the order of magnitude 2 days, that's about 180,000 seconds. An XRP transaction is 3 seconds. So if you take a low volatile asset times a long duration, fiat, or a high volatility asset versus a very, very short amount of time, it turns out mathematically there's less volatility risk in an XRP transaction than there is in a fiat transaction. The difference is you have market makers. When you do a Swift transaction, there's banks saying, there's a market maker saying, I'll lock in that rate. I'll take the volatility risk for the next 2 or 3 days. With XRP, you don't have to do that because it settles so quickly.
Hi, I'm Joanna Burset. 2018 was forging a strategic partnership with Ripple, the leading enterprise blockchain provider for payments. Our goal is to send international transactions to Mexico via Ripple's blockchain solution. With this cooperative arrangement, known as Currency, secure cross-border money transfers can be completed within minutes. We will communicate progress on this initiative as it develops. Along with other investors, Catalyst also entered into a partnership with Constellation Digital Partners. Constellation is the first open development platform for delivering financial services to credit unions. This platform will give credit unions broad access to the rapidly expanding.
Recently, you launched your digital large cap fund, and as you mentioned, you also have the Ripple Investment Trust. I know some of your portfolio companies, particularly the top tier exchanges like Coinbase, Gemini, and Circle, they're all declining to list Ripple because it seems like a security. So how did you choose Ripple and decide to also include it in your large cap fund?
It starts off with investor demand, and as evidenced by the activity and the trading of XRP and the market cap, there's clearly investor demand for it. And so for us, it was an easy decision to kind of just go through the list of tokens and do our own analysis around ones that kind of could be securities. And the conclusion, obviously, before we did this was that XRP was not a security. And its inclusion in the large cap funds, that we don't have discretion. That fund is it's a market cap weighted formulaic construct of a fund where it tries to essentially capture the top 70% market cap of the tokens, but there's exclusions around tokens that are not traded in U.S. dollar markets. There's exclusions around lack of custody solutions. There's exclusions around ones that may be deemed securities. So XRP being included in that large cap fund means that it's one of the largest, and we don't believe it's a security.
You've invested.
MoneyGram is one of the largest remittances in the world. And, well, they are facing some challenges and competitions. So the aim for them is to diminish the cost of the remittances. They opted actually to use the use case that I was explaining about using crypto asset as a bridge currency. And obviously, the ultimate goal is to bring the economy of scale and the cheaper and better service to their users. Our vision, and I heard that in multiple ways, and I know some people are using that, is the Internet of Value. Internet of Value means sending money like you send messages today. Well, but easy to say, of course, especially when we talk about money. We are talking about jurisdictions, we are talking about legal, and we are talking about trust. We are working a network, we call it RippleNet. I can tell you I'm coming from Swift. I used to work many years with incumbents and existing infrastructures. And when I joined Ripple, I knew how hard it is, especially in a world that, you are talking to banks and financial institutions mainly. But what we are doing in a nutshell, you cannot transform the world overnight. This is not going to happen. You have to go with the pace of, or the readiness of the financial industry. So what we are doing, part of our work is to help the business as usual, the banks, to use the power of DLT through the point-to-point connections in order to test this technology and get trusted. So they are using actually our softwares in order to send money from one point to another. It's real time, it's cross-border real time, and it is addressing a lot of challenges. Secondly, we are working very closely with those organizations that are ready today to embrace digital assets for the sourcing on-demand liquidity. And of course, we are helping the community to embrace this technology together. This is a bunch of names that you see, more than 200 customers. This is not marketing. Most of these logos that you see today, they have signed production deals. This is not about proof of concept. This is not about having that in the lab.
No, we've seen some really, really interesting use cases come to light over the last 6 months or so for Ripple's tech, and it's around PSPs, acquirers, being able to settle merchants much quicker using Ripple's technology. So that kind of, being able to settle per transaction is potentially something that could open mass opportunities for merchants in terms of cash flow. But not only that, we've seen big marketplace players that are able to keep sellers on their platform by offering them a diverse payout method, i.e. upfronting the cash using Ripple's tech in real time rather than waiting 3, 7, 10 days. And that's been able to give them a strategic advantage over other marketplaces that are offering, much poorer timescales of getting payments out. And I think that those kind of use cases are something that we're really interested in. Supplier payments, on-demand payments, is kind of where we see Ripple really making headways in 2019.
Cassie, Robert told us that he sees one use case of Dash in being international remittance, but this is also the use case for Ripple. What do you think is better, Ripple or Dash for international remittance? And why?
I think we're focusing on two different markets. You're kind of focusing on the consumer market. We're focusing on enterprise software for businesses. We have financial institutions transacting a lot of cash through Ripple's ecosystem now. Focusing on, we have 40 countries live, but the emerging markets are a real strong point for us, so Southeast Asia, India, etc. It'd be wrong of me to sit here and say, hey, Ripple's better than Dash, but you know, there is definitely a market for both of us. There's definitely opportunities for both of us, and we'll continue working very much in the enterprise solution space.
The first step to custody, because there is no recourse if your assets disappear from your wallets, is insurance, right? If somebody's willing to insure those losses, then that can get larger financial institutions, I think, more comfortable with the idea of custodying the assets. I think also it's interesting, you know, there are folks looking at this, right? I mean, there's Gemini custodies and ItBit custodies and Kingdom Trust custodies. So it's not like no one is doing it, right? But we've yet to have kind of, you know, Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or State Street, Boney. These guys have not jumped in yet, even though that you hear whispers and rumors that people are looking. But one of my jobs is to, again, create this liquidity pool for XRP and build a big capital market around it, because without liquidity, we can't fund, you know, we can't create the liquidity that you need for funding payments through some of the products that we're building. But even if you had, and I know it's all kind of chicken and egg, but even if you had the prime brokerage model and you wanted to offer leverage to your clients, that means that you now have to go out there and source a bunch of Bitcoin or Ether or XRP, and that's not easy to do, right? I think one of the advantages that we have as a company is the fact that we sit on 60 billion XRP. So the day that Goldman wants to open up their trading desk, they don't have to go find, you know, XRP. They just give me a call, which is nice. You know, I think it's, and you know, interest rates in this market are pretty expensive, so it's a nice recurring revenue stream one day. So you know, but that is a problem. That needs to be solved somehow, right? Because you can't just have one person doing it. Because truthfully, what happens is that Goldman borrows from Morgan, that borrows from Deutsche, that borrows from Credit Suisse, and it's a little bit of ring around the rosy, and they all end up borrowing from a central bank. We are using it for investments, right? So we are funding other companies with our XRP. You'll hear some stuff about that as well. And then, but really, we don't want to get rid of all of it, because we do feel like being maybe a primary lender in the market will be helpful as we try to build liquidity in the space. So, you know, the idea that we'll be better off with no XRP, I think, is not one that we're going to subscribe to.
I guess if we could dive into XRP and Ripple for 1 second, I think it's interesting. So Ripple Labs itself is a company with a valuation, and XRP is an optional native asset there. How do you view the two? And you sort of, who's really buying XRP for XRP? Is it supposed to be this internal sort of native bridge asset, or how do you compare the two valuations even there?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think, so the company Ripple and XRP are very separate things, right? Absolutely. And the company does happen to own a significant amount of XRP, right? And I think when the creators of the ledger created the ledger and the asset, they donated a chunk of XRP to the company and said, okay, your job is going to be the steward of the ledger and the asset, right? And I think over the last 4 years, we have gotten a ton of criticism for having all this XRP, even though now it seems like this is what everyone seems to do, is hold back some of their tokens so that they can fund their project. But when we did it, it was not kosher, right? Over the last 4 years, we have built probably the best C++ team in the world. Some of them are in the audience, who basically maintain this ledger 24/7. We have taken the money, poured it back into the tech. You know, you don't come to our offices and find, you know, Ferraris and golden toilets, right? We have invested very deeply in the technology. And as a result, I think we are now at a place where our traction with banks, our banking customers, right, who today do not use XRP for transfer, for value transfer, for a myriad reasons, because we have this traction with the banks, they lean in and say, what's going on with XRP? Is that something that we should be looking at as a solution for some of our challenges? So we think of it as the sort of the last mile of our software stack with respect to liquidity, and that's how it fits in. In terms of valuation, I mean, it's just an asset we have on our balance sheet.
The idea of moving large blocks of liquidity through these liquidity pools, which are disparate and kind of broken up, and is an interesting one, especially when you compare it to traditional markets. You know, one of the things that I'm fascinated by is really the lack of leverage in the system, and I think it's one of the things that really constricts the amount of liquidity that's flowing through the exchanges and the OTC houses. And we'll probably touch on some of this later, but the fact that everything is basically pre-funded and one-to-one limits the amount of liquidity that goes through, especially the larger cryptocurrencies. So I think, you know, things are getting better, certainly in folks like Circle and a few others in the OTC space really are kind of the trailblazers in that space and allowing to take that risk. But once we get folks to be able to go long and short in any considerable size and leverage those balance sheets, I think you'll see that get better.
That feeds well into the next question of when can we expect those facilities? What does the timeline look like for leverage in the system?
Yeah, that's, you know, I was in the back of the room listening to the previous panel, and custody came up, and you know, when custody comes up, I immediately think, well, then the next logical step is obviously prime brokerage services and large banks offering, you know, a suite of products in crypto at some point that, you know, mimics what they do in FX and equities and commodities. I think until we solve custody, we can't solve that second problem. And I do think once we solve that second problem, then these markets will begin to look like other markets. Until then, really, your number one place for liquidity is the exchanges, and you know, the credit risk that you want to take there, or the credit risk that they want to take with you. So.
Blockchain is interesting because that whole collection of technology is redefining the fabric and the plumbing of the financial world and the commercial world. Technology is first used in an industry to automate what's there already, and it's only when the industry gets comfortable with the technology or the technology embeds properly that the industry starts to look at ways of transforming itself. Whenever innovation first occurs, it always seems a long way away from the mainstream, but it moves very, very quickly into that mainstream. So, to give you an example, the Wright brothers got their very basic wooden plane off the field in 1904 in the mid-USA. 11 years later, the first commercial airline went into production. So you move very, very quickly from experimenting and learning to getting real viable propositions. And in today's world, that time span is much shorter.
The other area that I'm also investing in is decentralized finance. So there's been a rise of decentralized financial products, of derivatives or numerous things on lending. And so I'm looking at different investment opportunities there, because there are different parts of the world that can really leapfrog the existing infrastructure of financial products and resources. If you want to be able to have a lending platform in other remote areas, I'm talking to one company that's focused on certain countries in Africa, and they're going to be launching a lending platform as well, and so I'm evaluating that one.
And so while we think about payments as the initial use case for Ripple, I'm thinking about what other cool products can you build that we can take our customers, take back to our customers. One of them being loans, micro loans. So if you go into parts of the emerging world, getting a $10 loan is a big deal. It's called a micro loan. And guess what? I think you can do that with blockchain in a way that you couldn't do it using the traditional system.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm super excited about, hey, like, what are some more transformative products that we can build to some of our more emerging market that are completely underserved, or in other words, forgotten by the traditional financial world.
Another reason that we're focused on payments, a lot of the blockchain applications that I hope you're going to hear about kind of through the rest of the week, we believe they depend on payments. So trade finance, gaming, lending, smart contracts, insurance, identity, supply chain management. At the end of the day, a lot of the power of blockchain is kind of faithfully recording information that you value. And you want to make that information dynamic. You want to transfer ownership, and that's a payment. And so we believe that this Internet of Value concept, which kind of involves all these applications, really relies on having kind of a strong payments infrastructure under the hood.
And, you know, I have said on a couple of occasions that I see where Ripple is today with payments analogous to where Amazon was with books. The name of Amazon in 1997 was not Amazon. It was Amazon Books. They were a bookseller, and they were a fabulous, fantastic bookseller. And, you know, and obviously Amazon has demonstrated that, you know, by building some really robust core infrastructure, they're able to expand and to do other things. And certainly, while I'm incredibly pleased with what we're doing in payments, and that is a massive opportunity, you know, we have aspirations over certainly a 10-year arc of time to do other things also.
Cool. So
another one that it got some attention, but I particularly am very excited about, is we added the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority, the Central Bank of Saudi Arabia, as a customer of Ripple's. And they joined Bank of England as a customer, as a central bank engaging with us. And that also has really great secondary and tertiary impacts in working with the ecosystem throughout the Middle East. And so
it's more than a stamp of approval. They've got the connections on the rails there in the Middle East.
Right, and they see that we're moving from an analog to digital nature in terms of cross-border payment flows, and they obviously leaned in and joined with us. So
2018 has come to a close. What has the product team at Ripple accomplished this year?
I think that 2018 was an incredible year for Ripple and our product team. We wanted to make all the products work better with each other. And what I mean by that is XCurrent, you know, the product that we've been outselling in the market for now 3+ years, we made that work with XRapid. And why that's such a big deal is because you don't need to have the expensive capital tied up in Mexico. You can use XRapid for on-demand liquidity, instantly sourcing liquidity and delivering your payment into Mexico. You know, one of the really exciting things about XRapid is that not only did we get the product launched technically, but we got it live in Mexico, and we got it live in the Philippines as well. And then of course XVIA, you know, a lot of traction, especially over the last couple of quarters, getting that product live and also making XVIA work with XRapid, another big win to round out that experience.
What kind of feedback have you been getting from our customers, specifically with XRapid?
You know, I just got back from a really exciting trip in Asia, talked to a number of our customers. They want more places, more destinations, more XCurrent deployments so that they can get the reach into some of the hardest, most difficult places to send payments. And with XRapid in particular, they wanted us to make the onboarding experience faster. And what that means is that they wanted to be able to go and light up new corridors faster with XRapid, because they know as soon as that product is in their flows, they can not only save money, but they can all offer their customers a better experience because of the speed and cost savings with XRapid.
2 new products in 2018 live with real customers. I mean, you guys are already moving pretty fast. What does 2019 look like?
We want to bring XRapid to more corridors, and so we're looking at what specific corridors have the regulatory clarity that we need, but also solve a big pain point for our customers. And the other thing is XCurrent gives reach, and you know, we are looking for, you know, forward to pushing the product into more destinations, and so that folks have more destinations to send, you know, payments to as well.
Look, I think RegTech companies are an incredibly important part of the system now, and you know, the best example I can think of is, obviously, if you're going to operate in this world, you need to have a serious anti-money laundering KYC system. And it turns out that the AML KYC systems that the world's largest banks have are often, you know, not very good, and they run on very antiquated technology. And what we're seeing, I think, is you're seeing startups being more willing to work with RegTech companies to help them meet the obligations that things like the BitLicense have upon them. And so I think over the next year, what you're going to start to see, and I can say this about Ripple, you're going to see startups have, frankly, better AML KYC than the banks do. because they're more willing to use newer companies' technologies, whether it's machine learning driven or otherwise, to do a better job when it comes to AML, KYC. And it's, to me, frankly, troubling that there's so much resistance at the largest financial institutions in the world to really update their systems. Is it hard? Yes. Is it expensive? Yes. Is it asking them to sometimes deconstruct a system they're used to working with over many, many years, and with vendors they have deep, deep relationships with? But I think there's a reckoning coming. You know, regulators are catching up, and they're seeing that rather than always wrap banks on the wrists for doing poor AML KYC, and I was one of the people that did that as well, but what regulators should really be doing, spending some time on, is ensuring that the systems that the banks are using in the first place are adequate, are set correctly, and are modern, and using the latest technologies to do the best they can do. And I think, in a way, companies like Ripple and other fintechs are going to lead the way in that respect, and hopefully that will create upward pressure on the entire industry.
Extremely successful. It exceeded our expectations. We did work with the XRapid team. We made changes over the course of the pilot, which lasted about 30 days. It was a very intensive pilot. We achieved what we were looking to achieve, which was speed. In our business, speed equals reliability. That's the expectation of the customer. And the average speed of a transaction end-to-end was about 1 minute and 53 seconds. From the minute of the execution in the States to the moment that the money arrived in the bank account in Mexico. That's really just incredible. Also, another element that we looked at is the rates. Customers are very sensitive to FX rates. One of the things that we discovered in the process is that the way the technology works is that it would allow us to potentially create a new product. With the FX would be dynamic through the day. In this business, usually you have an FX that is very static. It's 24 hours or 48 hours. So after working with the XRapid team and with my different teams internally, we are actually trying to develop a new service, a new product that will include the concept will be a limit order, if you're familiar with that. So consumer could say, for example, execute my order to Mexico today by 6 p.m. unless the rate reaches, let's say, 1870. So we want to put that power 24/7 on demand when to execute that order. And that's where we are going. So we take in the know-how and the technology with our understanding of the marketplace. And that's a unique opportunity for us, what blockchain allows us to do.
And if you were to contrast...
Is it a security, first and foremost? And if it's not a security, it is most likely a commodity. And so that is the initial sort of test. What I will say is the interesting thing, unlike other kinds of investment contracts, is a digital asset can transform itself throughout time. So you can have a situation where something in an initial coin offering is very much a security, but over time the system becomes more and more decentralized. The enterprise that originally sort of sponsored the currency is no longer in the fore. The thing is sort of running itself. There's an intangible value, that's there. So you can have things that actually switch back and forth. You could also imagine a scenario where something is very much decentralized, but then all of a sudden, there's a pullback. The company gets more involved in it. It starts to look more like a common enterprise where profits are derived from the activity of others, thereby meeting the Howey test. But I think all things being equal, if you approach it as, is this a security? And if you come to the conclusion it's not with the SEC, it's most likely going to be a commodity.
Well, Interledger promises to connect all blockchains and digital networks together into a unified, seamless experience. Interledger makes scaling and interoperability possible by moving transactions off-chain while providing users with access to deep pools of shared liquidity for cross-currency transactions and seamless asset exchange. Integrating Interledger with blockchains, wallets, and exchanges is no easy task. Kava, the world's first Interledger solutions provider, works with partners to develop enterprise-grade integrations with Interledger and provides developers with the Kava API, an easy Interledger access point enabling Interledger transactions across major blockchain networks including Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and many more. Kava is working with its partners to shepherd in the next evolution of blockchain technology, where all digital networks can finally connect and interoperate. Where other solutions are promising a future of interoperability, Kava is delivering it today.
Yes. Okay, how Sologenic's ecosystem is good for XRP? So that's another great question here. We are, I would like to clarify the fact that we are XRP Pro, so we love XRP. We've been always supportive in the whole community, and if, as you know, the whole CoinFleet platform is based on XRP. So we are a supporter of XRP ourselves. But we are not here to increase or decrease the price of XRP. So Sologenic, it's a separate ecosystem which is built on top of XRP Ledger to help, obviously, the mass adoption of cryptocurrency, especially XRP. Now, how Sologenic system is good for XRP, there are multiple benefits. I would just go through some of them. I've been tweeting about that for a while, and probably some of you guys, read the tweet, but I would like to clarify it again. So first of all, Sologenic ecosystem pairing 30,000 stocks, over actually 30,000 stocks and ETFs with XRP. That's huge. You see so-and-so cryptocurrency exchange, they come up with two or three XRP-based pairs, and everyone gets excited. Say, oh, wow, 2-3 XRP-based pairs. No. With Sologenic, we are pairing 30,000 stocks and ETFs with XRP. And you can see what sort of huge volume it's going to bring for the XRP. That's number one. I think that's the biggest one. That's the biggest benefit for the XRP and XRP community. The other benefit, any transactions on Sologenic ecosystem, you send Solo coins from A to B, you send tokenized assets like stocks from A to B, they are going to burn XRP. So it's going to burn XRP. XRP are going to be burned for every transactions.
So that's where we are. So it's, we started 2 years ago in terms of transacting, and we're steadily growing. In fact, growing strongly.
We're glad to hear that the focus on remittances continues. And sort of looking at that, I mean, Ripple recently made an announcement in MoneyGram of up to $50 million, which took us all by surprise. Any sort of insight into that? I'm sure there are people here that would love for you to invest in their companies too. So.
Well, sure. It's not the area of business that I work in. But in terms of, the reason why we invest in MoneyGram, we believe that we can take a lot of friction out of MoneyGram's payment flows, and we can help grow their business using, in particular, our on-demand liquidity product. MoneyGram is a well-established global remittance company. It's embracing innovation, and it's exactly the type of customer we want to have on the RippleNet network. So that's why we invested.
That would be sort of the Fed's views with respect to, what a 21st century payment system is going to look like.
Yeah, 10 years is a long time frame. My key lesson from the last 1 year is there is a pivotal shift happening in the crypto space right now. It is a shift from the retail consumer focus into the enterprise space, so financial institutions themselves looking to adopt it, and a pivotal shift in the use case, where these technologies started out as a replacement for fiat currency. So we do away with the US dollar, we'll just use Bitcoin to buy our coffee. There's a pivotal shift away from that to how we can use the technology to connect fiat currency more efficiently. And I think those two shifts happening in parallel, an enterprise shift and a use case shift to have positive uses of crypto, have a lot of potential. This whole market will look very different 1 year from now with those two things happening.
I wouldn't be surprised if over the next 5 years there are 2-3 global brands that originate out of GCC in the remittance space. So if you look at somebody like Finabler, which is a customer of Ripple and is a global brand, and I think there should be many more following them.
God, I really wish I could answer that, but I'm under a non-disclosure agreement with PolySign, and because they're in stealth mode right now, I don't know what I'm allowed to tell you. I can tell you that they're in the custody business, and of course I can tell you that they're doing it like an amazing way, that, you know, Arthur and I are behind this, we're the lead guys on the technology, and obviously like we're doing it, we think we're doing it right, but unfortunately, I don't know what. I really wish I could tell you because it's so freaking cool. I'm busting with wanting to tell people what we did, and they're like, "Oh no, we're still in stealth mode. It's still non-disclosure." So unfortunately, I cannot answer that question. But I feel really bad about it.
At the time of closing. As you know, with our new partnership, Ripple has become our key partner for cross-border settlement using digital assets. And I am so excited to announce today that MoneyGram is now live and transacting on the Ripple xRapid platform. We started executing trades earlier this week, and all signs point to this being a tremendously beneficial relationship for all parties involved. We are literally settling currencies in seconds, and to quote my friend Larry, this is really cool. One of the core strengths of MoneyGram is our global liquidity and settlement engine that enables millions of customers to move billions of dollars across 200 countries and territories using over 120 currencies. We believe our settlement engine is a key asset with additional applications and use cases that could lead to new revenue streams down the road. Our partnership with Ripple will help further improve this core strength. Our internal innovation lab continues to explore new and exciting use cases for crypto, DLT, and blockchain as we look to build the business model of the future.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
He's got it.
I've got it. ได้แล้ว
เราได้แล้ว They got it. They got it. I got it.